What's up? Hello. I am ready to begin. Once again, if you are just joining us, please feel free to share. Oh, probably want to plug in my computer so it doesn't die. Please share this stream, this live stream around. Spread it, share it. What are we going to talk about today? So last time we did, I kind of did a show and tell. I thought that was fun, so I figured I'd do another one. I don't have a lot of collectibles. I have those shirts, and but I figured we'd talk about records this time. So much of the fanaticism around this band is around records. So let's talk about records a little bit. And I don't really have much in the way of records in that sort of way. I mean, I have some stuff, little things, but I figured I'd start with a fun story in the city. Oh, let's start with this guy. Let's see what I got here. So I'm going to put this down. Burying the lead for a minute while I do this. Okay. So this is pretty cool. Yeah, I don't really do much collecting. I'm not a collector. I'm a collector of interviews. That's what I do. I collect Misfits interviews, I guess, or I collect stories about the band. That's my collection. So everybody's kind of like a little bit of a collector when it comes. Some people collect stuff, other people do not. But one day I was in. What's up, Mr. Jim? Mr. Jim, I'm just about to talk about record collections, actually. So that's really funny that you are here. I hope you're safe and well in Florida, Mr. Jim. And if I do fly back down to shoot that commercial for Wolfface, definitely going to call you up and catch up and just hope you're well, buddy. And just stay safe down there, okay? So Mr. Jim played on the Static Age record, as everybody knows. He's the man. And my favorite Misfits drummer. Okay. So I was in Rocket Records in New York City. I don't even know if Rocket Records exists anymore. This was probably about 9 years ago. And, whenever I go to a record store, no matter what, I always am like, got any Misfits? Because I always want to see, or back then at least, I was always looking to see, this is 10 years ago now, what's in the wild, because it's so cool when you run across some really old Misfits vinyl, and it's just a lot of fun to see that stuff and find that stuff. And one day I'm in this record store, Rocket Records. I don't think it was on St. Mark's. I was somewhere down in yes, Liz, that's right. Liz is in the Wolfface music video. Yeah, okay, but that's a side note, Liz. Well, I'm actually going to talk about that in a little bit because I have that record here. But back to this story. Rocket Records had a bunch of records up for display. You know how they have 18 different records? They have their records here, and they're all all the rare and valuable ones, this, that, and the other. And this one caught my eye, as you can see right here. This is a first pressing on black vinyl, Initium. And this to me is one of the coolest record covers in all of existence. That is one of the coolest pictures in all of existence. It's in pretty tight condition, except for all these thumbprints I'm putting on it right now. I'll never sell this record ever in the history of ever. So, and like I said, there are so many people out there that have way cooler collections than I do. But, I guess what makes this record so great, or what this one in particular is so great, is the story that is attached to it. And so I'm walking through, I see this record, and I go to the record store clerk. And for those of you who are old enough to remember, and this excludes Mr. Jim, because Mr. Jim Catania, so first of all, Mr. Jim owned a bunch of different record stores. Later on, I don't know, Jim. I know you used to work for the Wiz too, right? You used to work for the Wizard. Nobody beats the Wiz guy, or no. Who'd you work for? Crazy Eddie's. Mr. Jim used to work for Crazy Eddie's in the city. You like that? I know that, Mr. Jim. You told me that a long time ago, actually. But he used to own a shop called Dinosaur Records. He had another place. Mr. Jim's House of Video was before Dinosaur Records. Mr. Jim is the nicest record store clerk, guy, whatever you want to call it, owner in the world. So this excludes you, Mr. Jim, from the story I'm about to say. Most record store clerks in like little teeny record store shops are dicks, or they can be dicks. They can be so pretentious and they just know more than you and fuck you. And I'm around records all the time, so I'm the man. Don't try to talk to me about records. I don't want to hear your record talking bullshit. And and I don't know about you guys, but sometimes, it's like you walk in there and you like want to like kind of either talk shop or, if you know something, you want to talk about how you know something, yada, yada, yada. So I should not put this seltzer near the records. Okay, let's go down here. So I'm in the store. I catch this Initium hanging on the wall, and the it says Plan 9 pressing, black vinyl. So it's not, I don't know if it's a first pressing or not. And again, okay, somebody here somebody who's a collector, hardcore collector, what is an Initium going for these days? I know that they definitely go for over $100, or they can go for over $100. But you could probably get some pretty good coin for a first pressing Initium. Especially, I believe later they were pressed up by Caroline Records, but this was before Caroline. This just says Plan 9 on it, right? So it says PL9-04. So yeah, I don't know. But it is definitely a really, really old record here. And I don't remember what the matrix numbers were for it, but... Oh, and we have a member of the band in the chat right now, Mr. Damien. I'm talking about how I came to acquire this Samhain Initium. Damien, a.k.a. Pete Marshall, is the man also, and after playing with Glenn and the guys, he played with Iggy Pop for years, and... played on some really cool albums and helped write some really cool songs and whatnot. And yeah, just a shout out to Pete, who I also chatted with many years ago. And yeah, it was a really good conversation. So I'm in the store and I go up to the clerk and I go, this is probably like, I think, you have this mispriced, or like, do you like, he was selling it. He was selling it for $50. And I just was kind of like, I was like, I have a feeling that's like, you're really under, because I'm trying to like, talk to the record store clerk guy for whatever reason. And he's just kind of looking at me like I'm a dweeb, and like I don't know what I'm talking about. But I kind of, not that I do, but like I just know that this record in the right market is going to go for a lot of money. And I say, you have that underpriced, that record's underpriced. And he was really rude to me, really like sort of like buzz off guy, like because he thought I was just like want to make conversation. He didn't think I was going to buy it. It was $49.99. It was $50 the record. And so we're trading back and forth, and he's just sort of like, he's continuing to be a dick. And so finally I go, all right, man, I'm going to buy that record. And he does that typical record store clerk thing, like I got to spite you now. He's like, sorry, it's being held. It's on hold. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll tell you what. I'll pay you $60 for it. I'll pay you $70 for it. I think I topped out at like $80, which was all I had on me at the time in cash. And because I was almost positive that this record could go for over $100. And the guy was refusing to sell it to me. And this made me really mad. So I walk out of the store. I was meeting a friend over a production meeting, actually, for this like project that never materialized. And I go to this guy and I go, I believe his name was Steve, and I go, Steve, I want you, here's $50. I want you to go into Rocket Records over here. I want you to buy this Samhain record for me. And I show him a picture of it on my phone. I look it up on the internet. He goes in there, buys the record. The guy sells him the record. And I'm sure in his record store, sort of karmatic, like he's like, ha ha ha, little does that peon know that I'm actually selling the very record that he was trying to offer me more money for than what I had it listed at. And comes out, Steve comes out with the record, gives me the record. I go back to the display window, giant pane of glass. I hold up the record and I just go, fuck you, motherfucker, I got the record. And I take it home. I looked at the matrix numbers, and it indeed was a first pressing first pressing Plan 9 Initium on black vinyl. And I brought it to Steve Zing. Steve Zing signed it, and I said, Steve, will you do a little drawing? And he did. And I gotta get everybody else to sign this. You too, Pete. You should sign this for me someday. It's been far too long. I'll buy you another 6-pack, and we'll have another conversation. How about that? So yeah, I thought that was really fun, and you know, then later on, I ended up, you know, I went on tour with this band, who will remain to me someday. Oh shit, it's been far too long. Okay, I went on tour with this band who will remain nameless. But I went on tour with them, and we were in Europe, and once again we're in a record store, right? And I do my thing where I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta find, because you know, it's like when you're in a record store, it's like that's probably the closest you're gonna come to finding some original vinyl, right? You're gonna find what's up, Aaron, aka the Fiend Crypt. Aaron is a really knowledgeable fiend. Hello, Rue, how are you? What's going on, John? How are you? What's up, guys? Good to see you here. So I'm in Europe. I'm touring with this band who remain nameless. We're in Ulm, Germany, and like there's like a pub, and then above the pub is a record store. And this isn't just any record store. It's like I've never seen, you know, usually you go into a record store and you see a lot of very common records. You don't see a lot of heavy metal, punk. Just that stuff is harder to come by. You know what I mean? But this store had everything. You know what? It wasn't a pub below. It was like a thrift shop below, and it was a record store above. This shop had everything, man. They had like every Metallica record, everything you can possibly imagine. So I'm searching. You know what I was really looking for? I was hoping, because they had so much metal. I'm like, man, what if they have Lucifuge? Danzig 2, Lucifuge on metal. That record goes for a lot of money. I would love to friggin' just own it. I didn't find Lucifuge, but I did find this. This is not, well, this is a first pressing, but it's a first European pressing, so I don't know what the difference is. And I paid 20 euros for it, which I believe is quite a steal. Again, anybody who is a record collector, tell me I am wrong. There's the guys. There's the band right there. Tell me I'm wrong if this is not a steal. I believe it is. And, yeah, it says London on the back. And I paid 20 euros for it. And the vinyl is super flimsy. It's a super flimsy vinyl. Like, I feel like it could break. I feel like it's a potato chip that would crack under pressure. And I was very scared bringing it across the pond back from Europe. Yeah, see right here. Danzig. That was the label and thing. Danzig, same, and it was... Oh, sorry, it was 22 euros. I've been saying for 8 years that it was 20 euros. It was not. It was 22 euros. So, can't get this thing back in. So yeah, and so I've never really been a collector in that sort of way. Like, I'm never, like, looking to drop serious coin and find crazy records. But... You know, I still like to own copies of records that I really appreciate. Tanner, what's up, buddy? Wow, $100. Holy crap. So 22 euros was a good get. That's great to know. Good to know. Wow. Hey, Jeremy, how are you, man? Hope you're well. Wow, really $100 for Danzig European first press. That's pretty cool. Wait, Tanner, one other question. How much would this go for? How much is this guy going for? Samhain first press, Plan 9 first press. Answer in the comments. What's the market on this? I'm never going to sell. It's signed by Steve Zing on the back. It's like a little bat figure. I don't know if that devalues it, but Steve is the man, and I wanted to know. So, frick. Okay. And then these records are more common. Actually, this record is probably, you know, at the time I bought it new, but I bet, oh my God, my Dead Mint first press, 150. Okay, So I paid $50 for that, Tanner. That's probably a pretty good deal. Wow. Good to know. I'm never going to sell that, by the way, because the story is too great. It's a great fucking story. I'm never gonna sell it because I love the story so much, you know? So this is Death Red Saboa, and I bought this. This was like when Danzig had not put out, this was 2010, Danzig had not put out a record in like 6 years. The last record was Circle of Snakes. Not that great of a record. This was considered the true return to that classic Danzig style from the first 4 records. And this is red vinyl. Does anybody know how much this goes for? This is a red vinyl, Death Red. I like a lot of the songs on this. I love the title. Death Red Moon is a great song. It's like translucent red. It's so beautiful. Treasures, right? Yeah, so I don't know how much this goes for now, but doing excellent. I think we met back in 2012. I went under the name Zombie during the Blitzkid tour. Hi, Jeremy. Yes, Jeremy, I'm sure we did meet. If I looked at your profile picture, I might recognize you. Do you remember what stop on the Blitzkid tour that was? What's up, Joe Stoker? Joe is the drummer of the Undead. Wow, we're getting a lot of Misfits adjunct people in here tonight. Oh shit, I'm totally bunching this up. That sucks. Okay, so this is only 1,000 copies of red vinyl, and it's 10 years old now. So I'm sure that's got to be worth something. Wait, shut up, Jeff. Death Red and red is a solid $100. That's insane. And I just bought it just cause. Man, I really should like go back to buying records when they come out. Okay, here's another one, guys. Okay, tell me about this. Anybody? Tanner, maybe you know. Jeff, maybe you know. So this is Walk Among Us. This came out. This is a pressing from 2015, I think. And it's kind of a weenie pressing. I think Hot Topic put it out, but I didn't own it on vinyl. And this was a very limited pressing. It's got all the cool pictures on it. How do I open? You know how like the record sleeve like splits and you're never sure which side to open and you're afraid you're going to mess it up? Yes. Okay, so this is a pink. This is like a pink white marble. Does anybody know what how much this goes for? I believe only 1,000 of these were pressed up too. Does anybody know? These have actually jumped up. Scene 2 sell for $85. Wow, $85 for this? I paid like nothing. Not nothing. I think I paid $15 for this. I just bought it on a whim because I didn't own it, and I was like, that's a cool color to own it in. And like I said, very casual owner of certain things, vinyls and stuff. And you know, by the way, anybody share this on your page, please. Please share. We want to share it up. Share it up. Okay, let's put that over there. San Diego, and I was interviewed that night. I'm close friends with JV from Darrow Chemical Company. Joe Vasta, a.k.a. JV, is a wonderful musician and guitar player, and had so much fun going on tour with him. And yeah, it was a really fun tour. And Jeremy, I'll check out your profile after this, and I'll see if I can like put the name to the face. So next is Static Age. This is like a run-of-the-mill Static Age. I just bought it. It was $10. It was on sale. And like I said, I didn't own Static Age. I thought it was kind of like embarrassing to like love the band that I love so much and not own Static Age on vinyl. And it's just a black vinyl. It's nothing like whatever. It's just whatever. It's in very good condition. I played it a few times. It does not have the 3 bonus tracks. Oh, yes, it does. It has She, Spinal Remains, and In the Doorway. Okay, yeah, so it does. And this is just so cool, man. This artwork was done by Tom Begowitz at Caroline Records, and he did a phenomenal job. And yeah, that's him. He wrote the foreword right here. I interviewed Tom years ago. Showed me some really, really cool shit. So there's that. That's another one that I have. Don't worry, guys. This is just the first section. We're going to get into the main meat of the broadcast. I just figured this would be really fun. Here's just a run-of-the-mill. I paid $12 for this. Just a legacy probably like the billionth pressing Legacy. Just cool to have. I love the Legacy mixes. Hello, Lorenzo from Ferrara, Italy. I hope you're doing safe out there in Italy, man. Be well. What's the climate over there? And yeah, that's just a really cool picture of Glenn right there. Hello, Adam. I love this artwork of Glenn, and it's done by Sean J. Barrett. And there's a Jerry and a Doyle version as well, besides Glenn, somewhere. And this one has like a shiny silver lettering, and I don't think. And then, you know, of course, the new Misfits. Russ, hello from Marquette, man. Hey, what's up? Nice to see you. So yeah, they use this font for all like the Legacy shows and for the Reformed Misfits. And you know, it kind of kills me because like the Misfits are a very artistic band, as we've discussed many times. And so, oh no, that's bad. Hold on, we have an emergency. Oh my goodness. What a crime. I'm just going to keep these in my lap. John. Hello, John. Do I know who the artist is? I do know who the artist is, John. By the way, John does incredible Misfits. He did some Misfits Simpsons artwork that is just phenomenal. And you should check it out on his page. John, post your page in the comments and share this link. Who did this? Who did the Legacy art? It was Sean J. Wyatt or Verrett, something like that. So those are those. And then, that's the Misfits related stuff. Does this fit down here where it's not going to get destroyed because I'm an idiot? Yeah, it does. Okay, I'll keep that there. Before we get to 7 inches, I just wanted to quickly do a plug for some I heard you had some cool OG shirts made by Glenn. Show them off. Tanner, I did that in the last episode. You missed the last episode, but just because you're requesting it, I'm sorry for repeating this, guys. For a full breakdown of what these shirts are and how I got them, please watch the previous episode and watch it on YouTube. Matter of fact, I'm going to link that right now, just so you have it. If you want a full breakdown of what I'm about to show at Tanner's request. Come on, Tanner, you got to stay on top of this stuff. Hold on one second. Here you go. That's the full breakdown. I just posted it in the comments. So here are my... Okay, this is really like probably the most valuable thing I own. And it's really, I don't know how truly valuable it is. I thought it was more valuable than it actually is, but they're still really cool. So that's my Vampirella. The original Glenn Danzig. This is made by Glenn. And the process of how he made it is in that previous episode. And notice like the fade. He does the fade from the yellow to the red. I consider this art. I need to get this framed. I'll never sell these ever, no matter what kind of coin I could probably fetch for them. Next up is what I'm told is exceedingly rare. But again, probably not worth much because they're not in the best condition. This is a Beware, the Misfits Beware shirt right there. Pretty awesome, pretty cool. I snagged this one. I had a choice of snagging a lot of them. I snagged this one because it had the Misfits on it. But Glenn used to print a lot of stuff. He did Count Chocula, all sorts of stuff. Quisp cereal. And then lastly, probably my favorite, probably the maybe not the rarest, but definitely the coolest. This is the Night of Living Dead with the hand-colored orange. I like to think that Glenn hand-colored this himself in orange. It could have been someone else. I say it's Glenn. I just say it's Glenn just because I want to, because I own this. And yeah, it's just fucking hand-colored Night of the Living Dead shirt. And they are super awesome, and I have to get them framed. And I have not, and that is annoying that I have not done that. Okay, Tanner, there you go. Just because I'm a nice guy. Okay, so back to the vinyl. So these are two non-Misfits vinyls, but I'm just going to plug them anyway because I love these artists. Thanks, Russ. The first one is this was done this is from Stefan from No Balls Records, and this is Mr. Underhill plus Nimvind, and the record. I'm showing this to you because like the packaging is so cool. It's very Misfits oriented, cool, and you can't really tell, but this is actually like an X-ray. Can you see that through there? Can you guys see the lungs and the ribs? It's just sort of translucent, and then it's a green record. Lime, I'd say it's like a lime green in there, and it's just a really special record to me about from a band that I really love, a horror punk band, I guess you would call them, and they're just fucking great, man. Well, Mr. Underhill is the precursor to Nimvind. Nimvind calls himself Nimvind, but he's also this band is Mr. Underhill, and they're three brothers, so they're almost like it's kind of like the same template as like Calabrese. Except they're up in Vancouver, Canada, and I've worked with Nimvind on several projects. He's contributed music to the soundtrack of my feature-length film Romeo's Distress, which I will also put in the. If you are interested about my other work, my non-Misfits. Hold on, aim my camera down a bit. Okay. I did. I tried. Romeo's Distress. What's up, Bob? Bob Bloodshed, father of Rob Bloodshed, is in the house. How you doing, man? Hope you guys are safe. Hope you and Rob are safe. Not getting a full view of the record. Okay, thank you for telling me, Rue. So this is a full. How about now? Can you see the full? That's the full record right there. How about this? Now you can see it. And yeah, I don't know how I would describe. Nimvind other than he just fucking rocks. You know what Nimvind is? Nimvind is like David Bowie. I'm glad to hear that, Bob. Nimvind is like David Bowie writing Christian death songs. That's who Nimvind is. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is a band I've worked with as well, and they've also contributed a song on the soundtrack. This just came out. This is Wolfface. Shout out to Michael J. Wolf. I was supposed to, right before this whole COVID-19 thing happened, I was supposed to fly down to meet up with Nimvind and possibly Mr. Jim as well. I was going to meet up with him, and I was going to shoot a music video for them, a commercial for Liquid Death Mountain Water. It may still happen. This is a great fucking band. Look at that gold foil. This was put out by Gunner Records. They're label mates with the Crypt Keeper 5, another amazing band. If you don't know the Crypt Keeper 5, check them out. And this is on what's known as, what's the vinyl color is, oh yeah, this is gorgeous. Look at that. It's red and orange. I forgot. Oh, this is a blood moon red. That's what they called it, blood moon red. And that's the fun about collecting different colored vinyl, you know? It's like, just there's something about the color of the vinyl, and from my understanding, colored vinyl doesn't sound as, let's say, taste. It doesn't sound as good as black vinyl, and it's the same with picture disc. Picture discs do not sound as good as just straight black vinyl. I don't know why that is. Somebody out there with the science, maybe you guys know better than me. But yeah, this is a sweet. Oh, it's by Say 10 Records, right? That's what it is. Say 10 Records. This is a great album. Just came out. Go check out Wolfface. They're called Wolfface, and their whole gimmick is that they are that is Michael J. Wolf from Teen Wolf, right there, wearing the Beavers thing, and they play punk rock. They are influenced by the Misfits a little bit, more so No Bunny. And if you don't know No Bunny, so back in Misfit Central days, for anybody out there who used to be on the Misfit Central board with me, every once in a while there'd be a post about non-Misfits music, and what does everybody listen to? And that's how we would kind of discover new shit before Spotify, right? And one of those discoveries was from this guy Kyle, who was a moderator on there, and it was, ta-da! No Bunny. Okay, I'm gonna open this up. It's such a pain in the ass. I like to keep the little sticker on, but I'm opening this up. This was for Record Store Day from Almost 10 Records. It's one of the most prized records I know a guy that presses records in Terrytown. That's really cool. Adam, are you from Westchester? Because I'm over in White Plains. It's pretty funny. This was the re-release of a classic record by nobody called Love Visions. And so for this re-release, he redid his 12-track LP as 6 7-inch singles. So it's a singles box set of the album. It's just a phenomenal packaging. You should feel the heft of this. I paid $35 for it. I think it goes for upwards of $200 now. I'm not sure. Don't worry, guys. We're going to get to the Misfits stuff again in a minute. It came with this. This was part of a contest, and this record apparently is super duper rare. I don't know how much it goes for, but it goes for a lot. And this is an oral history of Nobody. Great. And then here are the... Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. This came with so much cool shit. Look at this. Look at this. This is just a drawing that Nobody did for me. All right, you guys don't really give a shit about Nobody, but you should give a shit about Nobody because he's so... Oh, this is a poster. I'm not going to unfold that now. And it came with... Look at these. I don't think it came with these buttons. I think I put them in there because I didn't want them to get lost. Nobody stickers. Here's the real... Okay, here's the cool part. And I couldn't take out the stickers. Nobody who's in this documentary, he's also a big Misfits fan, so he did these. I mean, they really went all out with this release, man. It's so cool. And then look, he has, look at these, all these gorgeous records, man. And it's a pain in the ass to listen to this song, but it's just such a cool idea. So that's the entire album redone as a 7-inch box set. And it's just sexy as fuck. What can I say? All right, now let's go back to Misfits land, actually, because I have something else that's Misfits. Probably you're not going to think it's that cool. Tanner, I don't know if you're still listening. I'm about to share a bunch of stuff that probably will make you mad because you're just like, it's not real. Whatever. Okay, that's going to fall. All right, put this. This is annoying. Trying to find safe places for records, right? Okay. So I did not buy any of these. I inherited these from somebody. I don't believe in supporting bootleg records for bands. I think it sucks. I want bands to get paid, but still, nonetheless, they're cool to fucking look at. So these are my Misfits 7-inch bootlegs that I have. And they're great. They're great because, you know, if you're a diehard fan and you want to try and, you know, have that experience of listening, you know, to the band the way that people listen to the band when they first discovered the band in the 80s, I mean, this is like the cool way to do it, you know. So here's an EVILIVE, and these are redone really well. So if you just want to study something and not pay, I don't know, how much does an EVILIVE with this cover go for? Probably $1,000 or something, $700, $800. But if you just want to own the art and look at it, and just look at how cool, I mean, this was done pre-Photoshop, man. There's no Photoshop. You got to do like the layout. And this is done in a basement. You know, this is not done, why am I holding it up here? I should hold it up here, right? Yeah, okay, never mind. This is not done I keep thinking this is the camera. That's the camera. This is done in Glenn's basement somewhere. You know what I mean? This one's called Back with a Bang. It has Last Caress studio mix, and on the back is Who Killed Marilyn, Devil Lock, Devil's Whorehouse. And just the art is so cool, man. I just love everything that is. This one's really cool. I like this one a lot. I love the Jerry Only. It's on Plan 69 Records right there. And it's called Evil Is As Evil Does. Now, the original pressings of these bootlegs, Misfits vinyl is so fucking valuable. It's like gold, man. Even the original bootlegs go for a lot of money. I don't know anything about the original Misfits bootleg market, but for instance, I know that, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, a bootleg Misfits Beware 10-inch was Beware and 10-inch could go for $300, and that's in like $1991 because that's how rare. They only did one pressing of Beware in 1980, and then it was heavily bootlegged because it had the one track that neither it had a new track that the previous 7 inches didn't have. It had Last Caress, which Bobby Steele claims was his idea. Okay. This is interesting. This is the only record we have, or one of the only records we have, of the live 79 incarnation horror business Misfits, right? This is live at the Perfect Crime. I'm pretty sure I know who leaked this tape that allowed it to be bootlegged and made a lot of money off this record. I'm not going to say who that is because it's conjecture. And the cover actually features Arthur Googie and not Joey Image. It has Joey Image on the back, but on the front, this is the rare 1980 lineup right before Bobby was thrown out of the band. And it has 3 songs from the set, and it's so cool to hear these songs. It has Horror Business, Teenagers from Mars, Children in Heat, I believe. I would love to hear any of the other recordings from that. Oh, how did this get in here? Ha 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 ha. I don't know why I have this. This is Dig Up Your Bones. So yeah, there's that. It's original. This is actually original. This is not a bootleg. And I'm sure it probably goes for a lot of money. I don't know how much. If anybody knows how much this goes for, I'd be kind of curious. This is something I would sell, actually. I don't mind selling this. So if anybody knows... I don't know why I have... okay. So yeah, I don't know why I have this. I would not... I would part with this one. I've heard that it goes for... And I believe it's a cool color, right? Oh yeah, it's blue. So that's nice. I mean, that's pretty. Look at that. Blue. Oh, yeah. Pretty, pretty blue. And it has Dig Up Her Bones and Hate the Living, Love the Dead. Hey, I love those 2 90s albums, but it's a different band, man. It's a different band. Call themselves The Resurrected, them, Dead Kings Rise, whatever. It's not the same. So, next up is a yellow 3 Hits from Hell. And this has extra guitar with Bobby Steele. So this is culled from the MSP sessions in 1980, right? And then like remixed to smithereens. What does this say on it? Yeah, reissue. They don't have the actual labels on the inside. That kind of sucks. But yeah, 3 great tracks. Here is another EVILIVE. This EVILIVE has Glenn on the cover. So here's the thing. The real deal, there's like 4 or 5 different covers for EVILIVE. But if you have a 3-pack with Glenn, if you have this, if you have the one with this one, I believe this one, and then there's a 3rd one, or maybe it's Glenn, Jerry, and Doyle. I'm not sure. Someone correct me. If you have the 3-pack of these EVILIVEs, Umberto, answer this question, because Umberto actually owns a 3-pack, which used to retail for, or on the market for $10,000, if I'm not mistaken, right, Umberto? Can you speak to that, buddy? But if you have 3 of these, because Glenn had a bunch of extra sleeves or whatever, so what he did was he put together these 3-packs, and he was giving them out like they were candy. He was just handing them out to people. Whoever held on to those, they're worth thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Okay, this I did buy. These next 2 I actually did buy. This is from Record Store Day. This is the Misfits and the Lemonheads Skulls. This was an official release, and it's picture disc vinyl. Just open up Umberto. I don't have it yet. I tried ordering it, and the book never came. They canceled my order because I ran out. But I would love to. By the way, Umberto contributed a lot of pictures and collections and informations, and I believe did some writing as well for Scream With Me, the new Misfits book. I'm dying to check it out. Haven't been able to get a hold of it. It really, really pisses me off. Definitely something I want for my collection, so check that out. Go look for Scream With Me. What's the Umberto? Put the linkage in the comments, man. I'm not gonna look for it now, but Umberto, link that shit in here so people can track down the book. So this is the Lemonheads doing Skulls, and theirs is an acoustic, and this is, guys, we're gonna get to the other stuff in just a moment, by the way. Misfits, Lemonheads, and Misfits, blah, blah, blah. So the 2 versions of Skulls, blah, 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 blah. Wow. Umberto says the last 3-pack sold for $15,000. 3 7-inches of this for $15,000. Unfucking real. It's at a New York hardcore comic book store. Adam, are you talking about a EVILIVE 3-pack? That's fucking insane. Okay, so there's that. Okay, this next one is really awesome. I loved this. I bought it just because I was like, I just wanted to have it. This I bought in, I think I got it at Generation Records in the city somewhere. Not sure. Just a second. Here we go. Okay. Now, I believe, who knows who Ted Leo is from Ted Leo and the Pharmacist? Oh, the book. The book is at the hardcore. Okay, so the book, Scream With Me, is at the New York City hardcore comic book store. I don't know. Someone link that shit. This, I believe I got it at Generation Records, West Side, New York City. This is a band called TV Casualty. They are a Misfit, one of the million Misfits tribute album bands out there. And this one's fronted by Ted Leo, as far as I know. Ted Leo from The Pharmacist. I don't know. Ted Leo and The Pharmacist. If anybody knows who Ted Leo is, he's a great guy. Great, like, sort of punk rock guy. Oh, why did I think it was in New York? Okay, I'm going to Dobbs Ferry. I'm going to go pick up that book. In any case, yeah, TV Casualty. I believe that is Ted Leo right there, and he's wearing, like, a wig. And, yeah, he sings like Glenn. And, yeah, this was a really cool set. It was, so for $7, you get 6 songs, right? It was, yeah, Ted Leo is on vocals, right? Ted Leo on vocals, Adam Gorin guitar, Brian Sokol guitar, Andy Nelson bass, and Chris Wilson drums. I mean, that's pretty freaking awesome. And it's on red vinyl. Who would have thought Ted Leo singing Misfits songs? It's on solid red vinyl. And yeah, it's just really fun. It's fun to hear Ted Leo, who's a great vocalist, a frontman, guitar player, just singing songs. And this is a little insert in the Grand Misfits tradition of putting an insert in your shit. I think that's pretty fucking cool. From Matador Records, actually. So Matador put this out. Matador also put out a lot of Jay Retard, for anybody who knows who Jay Retard is. And if you don't, go look up Jay Retard. Yes, John, that is correct. Abrams is sold out. Whatever is left is in retail stores and Amazon. Not sure a second edition will see the light of day because of the lawsuit. Okay, so I guess I'm taking a trip to that store. That's really sad, Umberto. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Seemed like such a cool book. I really hope that gets all sorted. Here we go. This is a Cough Cool right here. This is not a real Cough Cool. Obviously, this is one of those bootlegs I was talking about that I never bought. It was given to me. But when I met with Manny Martinez, the first drummer, who we're going to talk about in a second because we're going to talk about a new song. We're going to talk about another song from that tape I listened to. You know, Jim, we actually, oh man, it's too bad you live in Florida. I have so many new questions to ask you since we last talked. Whatever. In any case, I had Manny sign it because why the fuck not? You know, I don't know. I was feeling stupid. And yeah, it's just cool to own this. And, you know, who does Glenn thank on the back? Glenn and the band. They thank Marilyn, Clark, and Monty, who are the stars of The Misfits, the movie that this band takes its name from. They thank Rainbow Studio in New York City, where this was recorded. Eddie's Lounge, which is where that show we're going to talk about in a few minutes, where that show took place. Diane and Tom for immoral support. I don't know, maybe Umberto, do you know who Tom is on the back of Cough Cool? Diane is Diane DiPiazza, who fiddled around on bass before Jerry and Glenn met and really the Misfits formed. The Crowd, Spectrum, Brooklyn, I don't know who Spectrum, Freddie. I know who Freddie is. I don't know him, but I know who he is, and I've been trying to track him down for 10 years. He's an interesting character. And lastly, Bukowski. Remember we talked about in that first episode? Go listen to the first episode. Here, I'm actually going to link the first episode right now in the comments, where we talked at great length about Glenn's Bukowski influence. Glenn takes a lot of influence by Bukowski. That's awesome, Jeremy. I also have the bullet. I'm going to flash that in a second. So, yeah, so that's also in the comments. Okay, next one is really, 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 really fun. Jeremy D. Post your Misfits vinyl in the comments below. Okay, so this one. Okay, actually, I did buy this one too. This is another one that I did actually buy, and I bought it because I was like, "What the fuck is this?" It's like purple, and this is Spook City, USA, and I was like, "This is so cool, man! Like, what a cool release!" And I believe, oh yeah, I paid five. Oh no, yeah, look at this. It was originally $5. And it was marked up to $5.99. Banner. So this is Spook City USA and Ratfink and Children in Heat. 3 phenomenal songs. Actually, really, Children in Heat is one of my favorite Misfit songs. But yeah, just a piece of paper. And it folds out into this cool little poster. And I mean, that's just so cool. Because I mean, look at it. I don't know if this was, I bet you this was silk screened by hand. It looks like it could be. I'm not a craftsman sort of guy, so what do I know? But it looks like it could have been silk screened, and it's just really neat. And it actually does have an actual label, and it's printed on purple vinyl. Ooh, purple. Yeah, it's pretty. And I've listened to it, and it's pretty great. I love the song Spook City USA, too. Really, really fun song. Interesting to note, actually. Let's take a little detour into Spook City USA. It's kind of a rare Misfits song, and nobody really got to hear it until, I guess, the box set. Well, that's not true. They had heard the Glenn Danzig version, so the Misfits version never got heard until the box set that came out. But originally, the only way you could hear Spook City USA was on the Who Killed Marilyn 7-inch. Which is a Glenn Danzig solo record. Why did Glenn Danzig do a solo record in the middle of his run with the Misfits as a band, especially when they're doing all these 7-inches? And better question, how did it come to be? Well, we could talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But Who Killed Marilyn, which also was done as a Misfits song as well, and was a canceled release. Both of these tracks were done entirely by Glenn Danzig at one point, and unfortunately, I don't have it to show it to you. So let's just pull that back out for 1 second. Oh no, I lost it. All right, whatever. It's like filibustering. I swear to God. Glenn recorded all the tracks for it. He did the guitar, the bass, and the drums, and they both sound terrible. They're not great. They sound like they're being held together by rubber bands and rubber glue, you know what I mean? It's just like barely holding together. Glenn's drumming is very rudimentary. Although his drumming on that Danzig record, that Death Red record, is pretty good. It's good. It's not bad. It's pretty good. But when he first started drumming, not really that great. Here's just a classic. Oh yeah, but why does it exist? Why do a Glenn Danzig solo record separate from the Misfits? And because I think at that point, at that time with the band, Umberto, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at that point, at that time with the band, you know, Glenn or Jerry and Doyle were they worked for their father at the Pro Edge factory during the day. And Glenn was like, come on, we got to go do band shit. And they were like, no, we're working. They were kind of like disinterested at certain points and times. It's probably around between 80, 81. I think it came out in 80. I think Who Killed Marilyn came out in 80. And Glenn was just like, fuck you guys. I'll put out my own record then. I'm going to put out these songs myself. Because the Misfits, when they would rehearse these songs, they never really much cared for them. Or at least they never really much cared for Spook City USA. So Glenn was like, fuck it, I'm going to put it out myself. He found a backer who we're going to talk about, a very important guy. A guy who, without him, many Misfits, he's a benefactor. He's a mysterious benefactor, an incredibly important figure in Misfits lore. His name is George Germain. And more about him in a minute. But he helped Glenn put out that Spook City USA Who Killed Marilyn 7-inch. Reverse that. So next is Famous Monsters of Filmland, right? This is just a bunch of tracks from the fourth. Well, this is weird. Okay, so this is called 4 Hits from Hell. Sorry, this is called 4 Hits from Hell. This is called 4 Hits from Hell. And yes, George Germain. That's right, Umberto. And it says, from the forthcoming album, Lucifer's Penis Rising. That's weird. and it's got some songs, and it's limited edition. There's only 500 copies of this. I don't know if that's really true. This is probably a repressing of the original, which is only 500 copies, which is probably worth a lot of money if you have one of the originals of this. And this is from Scatter Brainchild Records, ripping off Glenn. Plan 666. Everybody trying to get a piece of the band. For a band that only had 56 original songs, there are a lot of boots. And here's one of my favorite records of the 7 inches. I love everything about this. Just the layout. It's just beautiful, man. Horror Business. This is the second back. There was a different backing originally, and Bobby Steele had like 500 uncut sleeves of that, and he would sell them, and that's how he sustained himself for a long time. I know in 1990, the original Horror Business sleeve went for $300. Umberto, how much does a original Horror Business sleeve go for today? So this is on, the original is on black vinyl, right? But the 25 were pressed up in yellow. If you have a yellow, wait, am I reversing that? They're all in yellow and a black. Okay, so I think they're one of the two colors. It's either yellow or black. Maybe it's a black. If you have a black, someone correct me. If you have a black Horror Business, there's only 25 of them, and they're super rare. Henry Rollins paid $5,000 for a black Horror Business. Yeah, that's right, because the yellow ones are more common. And this was written by my personal good friend, who I just a wonderful friend of mine who I met through this documentary. Dave Street wrote the foreword to this, because they wanted to try and, make everything sound. And so cool that the bootlegger recreated this insert. On February 28th, 1979, the Misfits and a mobile recording unit entered an abandoned haunted house in northern New Jersey. They recorded and left. While mixing the tapes back at a New York City, NYC studio, strange voices and noises were heard in the background. Note especially Teenagers from Mars. In reality, that was probably the recording engineer. No explanation of these sounds could be given by the band or the recording crew. The following tracks on this record are a result of that eerie session from Dave Street, and his name is Street Meat. Dave and I met through this documentary. We became friends. He's acted for me in a bunch of stuff. I love that guy so much. You can catch him in They're Made Out of Meat. I'm going to put that link in the comments. We did this movie called They're Made Out of Meat, and he plays a strange alien. He's the guy wearing the leopard. It's not a very good short, but I still love it because we made it with a lot of heart. Here's Dave Street. You can see him right there in my movie from a long time ago. Rollins. Wait, what? Wait, Umberto, he bought it from you? Wow. Wow. That's fucking crazy. Okay, so Rollins paid $15K for the Black Horror Business. It was Umberto's old copy, and it was sold by someone in Florida, and we know who that. Okay, now I remember where I got that information from, and I thought it was $5K. It was $15K. It was from a very well-known sort of collector, hoarder, whatever you want to call him. I'm not going to say his name. He's down in Florida. He's pissed off a lot of people in the Misfits community. People know to stay away from him because he does a lot of counterfeiting. No, Aaron in Florida? Oh, it was not AK. I thought it was AK. Okay, never mind. All right, somebody else. Whatever. It was okay. So AK Umberto AK claims that he sold Henry Rollins a Black Horror Business as well for $5,000. So I don't know. Oh wait, no, Aaron. I don't know how you're making that comment, Umberto. What are you saying? Are you saying it was AK? In any case, this guy AK, he was actually there when Chud and Graves walked off that final show, and Joey Image jumped in to play drums for Jerry and Doyle. Imagine that, Jerry Doyle and Joey Image. Yes, Aaron is AK. Yeah, so AK, because I had a conversation with him, and I remember him telling me, but I remember him saying it was $5,000, not $15,000. AK has some rare shit. As a matter of fact, AK, for those of you out there seeking, AK has a reel of 8mm film, soundless 8mm film. Nobody knows what's on it. It is Misfits related. probably when Doyle was in the band, and it's never been digitized. I was on a quest to get it digitized for some time. It never happened. He was willing to trade me digitization for one of those t-shirts I showed you earlier, and I refused to do it because I didn't know what was on it, and I just didn't make any sense. Another record from one of my favorite periods, besides that Horror Business, which is so great, is the Night of the Living Dead. Look at that back cover, is so fucking sweet. It's just so great. And I love the original Misfits. I mean, I love the later one, the later, using the later letters from Famous Monsters of Finland, but the original Misfits logo, which was from a Cough Cool era promo poster, and then it just got used to death. I just think it's so much cooler. I don't know what it is. That's just awesome. And yeah. So yeah, Night of the Living Dead. Great fucking song. What's on Night of the Living Dead? This was recorded at the Song Shop, New York City. And it was produced by Dee Solanke and the Misfits. Dee Solanke, aka Danny Solanke, was I believe the guitar player for another band at that time called The Mad. The Mad, along with the Stimulators and the Bad Brains, used to play the Max's Kansas City with the Misfits, and they were in that first wave of hardcore the first wave of bands that would really give birth to what eventually became hardcore. We talked about this. Refer to the last episode of this broadcast that we did last week, where I talked in depthly about the difference between new wave, hardcore, and punk. And so Dee Solanke was a part of that, and he recorded this, and I still have yet to interview him, but yeah, he recorded this, and Bobby has some good commentary about mixing and recording Night of the Living Dead and Horror Business, because they were interesting sessions. A lot of bleed through. Another favorite cover, and if you notice, these are the pumpkins that Glenn and Jerry had manufactured really big for the reunion shows. Horror. This is Halloween and Halloween 2. This is called from the MSP sessions. That was going to be something along the lines of 12 Hits from Hell. And on the back are the lyrics to Halloween 2. Formula uteris ectasis mortem et communicarum strigus et fictus lupus creende metamorphosis lycanthropy posunt in quam. And interesting side note about this, and this actually came with an insert, even though it's also a bootleg piece of shit. But look at that insert, man! Look how cool. What Glenn was so smart to do this sort of shit. You know, I mean, he added so much. He added so much to this band just by doing this cool visual shit. No other bands were doing such cool visual shit back in the day. I mean, I could talk endlessly for hours about this stuff as the Misfits nerd. So here, Glenn writes the lyrics to Halloween, and it says, copyright the Misfits and Hellbent Music. Hellbent Music was Glenn's publishing, I believe. And here's the band, and you can tell it's super bootleg because the picture is really blurry and out of focus, and I believe it's a lot clearer and less blown out on Jerry's face if you have like a real version. So quick side note about Halloween 2. As a young 15-year-old lad trying to figure out who this band Misfits are, I looked up the lyrics to Halloween 2, and it's like an incantation in very, very shitty Latin that Glenn had cobbled together about transforming back into a werewolf, something like that, or transforming into a werewolf. And in my 15-year-old brain, I love telling this story. In my 15-year-old brain, I was like, okay, so this band and all their members, they become werewolves. They become werewolves. Every time they get a new member into the band, they have to initiate them. They initiate them by turning them into werewolves, and they're all werewolves. I don't know what made me think of that. And so, Mr. Jim, I thought for a long time you were a werewolf. I think I told you that story when I first met you. But yeah, it's just like the things that we because it's just like this band is mysterious. It's like that's what we love so much about the band. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And then here we have probably one of the best besides Horror Business, Bullet. Mr. Jim plays on Bullet. Mr. Jim plays on all the Static Age. And Jim, I'm really gonna lay it on thick here for a minute. The thing that makes Jim's playing so fantastic is that, like, and again, I'm not a drummer, so I'm like, I talked about this in that first episode, but Jim's just like, it seems when you're listening, he's always like riding that hi-hat. He's just going, and he's finding like, he's finding every moment that he can, kind of like in a more punky version of like Keith Moon. He's finding any moment he can to do a drum fill. So it's just like, you know, like, and every song has, you know, even though the drumming patterns are different or whatever, the different beats or whatever, but they all share this theme of like, I'm gonna hit the hi-hat at some point, and I'm gonna do some like, I'm gonna do these really, really fast drum fills. And when people play those songs, nobody plays the beats like Mr. Jim did. They just don't. Everybody does like straight up, you know, 4/4 blast beats, whatever you wanna call it, just that fucking meat and potatoes, but there's none of the nuance that Jim does on those Static Age recordings that makes it so great. And obviously everybody knows this cover. It's iconic, you know, all the art for this documentary that I'm trying to scrape and pull together is, you know, I'm like, well, I'm never going to be able to use the Crimson Ghost, right? But there's no monopoly on JFK with the Devilhawk. So there you go. And here is the band. And this is the first. So I'm not sure if the first pressing, Umberto, remind me if you recall, either the first press, no, yeah, okay, so this is actually the first pressing. Second pressing, when they repressed Static Age, they put Better Dead on Red on the back. So it was Better Dead on Red, and I forget what that saying was in reference to. And this photo, we would later learn during the reunion shows, Glenn had Jerry steal this photo from a library. So he'd be like, he pressured Jerry to go to a library somewhere in New Jersey in Lodi, and he snatched it up, man. He snatched up the photo. And Glenn designed this himself. You know, it's like, how do you get that Xerox quality? Well, what you do is you take up, much like we're going to talk about in a minute with tapes and tape hiss of the 80s. You take a picture and you Xerox it. Then you take that Xerox and you Xerox it again. And then you take that Xerox and you Xerox it again and again and again and again and again. And it kind of, and obviously this is like an overblown sort of thing, but it kind of get this weird sort of aesthetic when you do that. And yeah, it's just really cool, man. And oh God, I just love everything about this. And I'm getting hoarse just talking about it. This was engineered by David Keelis, and it was distributed by Ork. Terry Ork was a producer, manager. Right, thank you, John. It was an anti-communist saying back in the McCarthy Red Scare era, and then it got adopted for, you know, JFK getting his head blown off, you know, Better Dead on Red. Or Better Dead Than Red, right. Better Dead Than Red, Better Dead on Red. And then the other thing, too, is it comes with this, oh my God, this beautiful lyric sheet. Gorgeous, gorgeous lyric sheet. With JFK getting his head blown off, and Glenn's typed out the lyrics. And the lyrics to Bullet started off as a poem in 1973. So this was originally a poem. Now, here's something that we need to talk about, and this is something that really blows my mind about the Misfits as a band. Let me ask you a question. How many Misfit songs have rhyming lyrics? Honestly, can anybody answer that question? How many Misfit songs have rhyming lyrics? I don't think a single one. So when Glenn's writing songs, he doesn't like try to rhyme any of his lyrics. He writes these incredibly catchy songs without trying to rhyme shit. So he's doing these like, feels like a Bukowski poem. As I said, he thanked Bukowski on the thing, right? President's bullet-ridden body in the street. Ride, Johnny, ride. Kennedy's shattered head hits concrete. And look at the way he's done the formatting. It's like a poem. It's like a deconstructed poem that he's set to music. Texas is an outrage when your husband is dead. Texas is an outrage when they pick up his head. Texas is the reason that the president is dead. Arise, Jackie O, Jonathan O, Kennedy. Arise and be shot down. Dirt's gonna be your dessert. It's like he's doing this like beat comic poetry, man. There's no rhyming in here, you know? And it's got to be really hard to write a catchy song without rhyming shit, you know? So that's what I find so interesting about this stuff. It's like, it's like he's doing beat poetry that's styled like Bukowski, and he's not rhyming any of his shit. It's like if I'm gonna try and write a song, I'm gonna try and rhyme everything. I'm gonna be like, I have a red ball, and I went to the wall, and I'm a know-it-all. And meanwhile, motherfucking Glenn Danzig's like, president's bullet-ridden body in the street, ride Johnny ride, Kennedy's shattered head is concrete, ride Johnny ride. There's Johnny's wife of floundering, Johnny. So he's finding a way to like not only sing this shit, but he's singing shit that's not rhyming. It blows my mind. I mean, I know it's not like, look, I'm not a musician. What the fuck do I know? But like, I know it's not like, it's not what's it called? It's not a requirement to write a song that fucking rhymes. But, if you're gonna write a song, and try to make it catchy, if you're trying to break into something, maybe you are. Look at all the Ramones songs. A lot of the Ramones songs rhyme. None of Glenn's songs rhyme. Not a one. I'm trying to think. I'm literally trying to think. I don't think any of Glenn's songs rhyme. Someone prove me wrong. Maybe you can. I don't think any of his songs rhyme. It's a testament to his genius. Okay. So, with that being said, let's talk now about something else. So here's what happens. The band breaks up, right? 1983. They're dead. Hey, what's going on, Steve? I have not. You actually have some pictures of George Germain. Steve has some pictures of George Germain that he has shown me, and he also has George Germain's guitar, which is pretty cool. But Steve can speak more to that than I. I just was privileged enough to get to see it. What was I just talking about? Okay, so the band breaks up, right? And all of a sudden, they don't exist anymore. But you know what still exists? All of the 7 inches. All of these records. All of the records that they put out still exist. And people are slowly discovering them. The Skull still exists. It's like dinosaur bones. And, I don't know how skateboarders picked it up, but they did. They started to pick it up. And yes, that's right, Steve. The guitar that the George Germain's guitar, it's a 57 Gretsch that Steve is in possession with. I won't say where because I don't want. Although I don't think whatever. I don't want anybody to go and try and find that guitar. But yeah, Steve pulled that out one day. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Used on Horror Business and American Nightmare. Pretty fucking cool. Pretty cool history. What the fuck was I talking about? Okay, so skateboarders are like, wearing the image and they're seeing like, and people are slowly being like, whoa, what's that skull? What's that skull? Oh, here's this tape, blah, blah, blah. And this is what's really fascinating. So when you're making a tape of songs from a 7-inch, there's like this weird way where you can kind of do it in, fast forwarded. You can fast forward a dub. It's like high speed dubbing is what it's called, I believe. So you hit fast forward on a tape and it will speed dub. And then people started making dubs of all these Misfits tapes. And what's slowly starting to happen, 2 things. 1, the tapes are starting to get bootlegged, and 2, the tapes are starting to slowly come out of sync. The timing of the songs, the tempo, whatever. I don't know. What is the musical shit, Steve? Like the rhythm, the quality, that the tempo, the melody, the tempo, or whatever is slowly starting to change. And these different versions of these songs with this crazy hiss, losing sync, changing the style and nature of the recording, are then heavily bootlegged. And that's how you get all these weird versions of these songs in the 80s. All of a sudden, people are hearing the Static Age songs, which have not come out. They're not going to come out until Legacy of Brutality, but they're hearing them on these random-ass tapes, and they sound all different and weird. They sound like 1,000 different versions of these songs. But the reality is just that people have just recorded them so much that, like, they just sort of lose a lot of the initial qualities of what they were, and and sort of change. So you get a lot of really interesting sort of sort of different versions. I want to talk a minute about this guy that Steve, you'll know who this guy is. This guy Jonathan Grimm, and this other guy Mark Kennedy. And what's interesting about these guys, we've spoken about them. We spoke about Mark Kennedy previously on another episode, and you know, like, the reason why we know all this shit that we know is kind of because of these two guys, in a way, because they got together. They both lived in Virginia. They got together. Jonathan Grimm had this massive Misfits collection known as the Grimm Collection, and Mark was just like a rabid fan who had this, like, I think this was actually before he started the online stuff. He was trying to compile a book called the Misfits Bible, and he would get together with Jonathan Grimm, and they would go down and make, Xerox. They would Xerox and make copies of each other's notes, and Mark would pore over Jonathan's collection and take notes, and that's how, like, all that shit that's on Misfit Central came, because he studied Jonathan Grimm's collection. And what's kind of interesting is that, like, it's almost like all of us Misfits nerds, take this stuff as seriously as we do because they took that shit so seriously, because Mark took it so seriously. He fucking made this stuff so important because he just scrutinized it. He just wrote it down, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it's like we read it online and we're like, oh, well, it must be important because it's fucking written online here. And like, it's I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I saw in a Facebook group, people were talking about, they had a picture of a test pressing of Teenagers from Mars. It was an acetate. And it was signed by the Static Age lineup. It had Mr. Jim, Franche Coma, Glenn Danzig, and Jerry Only on the paper sleeve. And they were, and I mentioned that there was a pretty cool story behind that I had heard from Jonathan Grimm, who owned that very acetate. And it was funny because in the group, the person commented on, like, "Are you sure it was this very one?" or something along those lines. It was like, yeah, it was that very one. And so what happened was, going back to Steve, I don't know if you're still there, or maybe Umberto, so this guy George Germain was like the mysterious backer of Plan 9 Records, and he was responsible for getting a lot of stuff, financing things, and he helped Glenn and was kind of a mentor to the band and did a lot of really cool stuff. And like I said, Glenn borrowed the guitar for American Nightmare and Horror Business. When in the early 90s, Jonathan Grimm became a producer. Thank you, Steve. George Germain was also a producer, and George knew a lot about a lot of shit. He was a well-known, and again, I don't know. These are not my things. I know this from what people have told me about him, and a father figure. Yeah, George knew a lot about a lot of shit. He could tell you. So he worked for car companies, I believe, and he mixed paints, and he just did all sorts of things. He once called up Les Paul to let Les Paul, he knew of a better way to, alter pickups in one of Les Paul's guitars. And there's this story about how Les Paul hung up on him, and George Germain called back Les Paul and was like, nobody hangs up on George Germain. Something like that. But yeah, he's just a guy who had he was a producer and benefactor who knew a lot about a lot of stuff, and he lived in Lodi, and he just knew a lot about a lot of shit and could tell you about a lot of different shit. And when this guy Jonathan Grimm was working for Jerry, I don't know where they were, but he opened up George Germain had a filing cabinet with a bunch of stuff. He opens up the bottom drawer of this filing cabinet, and this is when Jonathan Grimm is at the height of his collection, this Grimm collection that's like, it was one of the first very extensive collections, right? And he opens it up and he finds Teenagers from Mars, test pressing. There are only 5 of these in existence. It's an acetate, and here's what an acetate is. So an acetate, before you make your record, you do the what I guess this is part of the mastering process, but even before that, you mix the record, right? And then what you do is you take a lacquer, which is like this. It's like a disc. You put it on a record cutting machine, and as it rotates, the whatever was on the tape gets recorded or cut into the lacquer, and then like a type of coating. I don't know what it is. Like it's a metal. It's either silver or nickel or something. The lacquer is coated in metal, and what that does, and then it hardens, and then that becomes the master. And then the metal master, it's separated from this lacquer, and then inside the lacquer are sorry if this is getting very technical, but like there are these like ridges and grooves and places where the music lives, and then the metal master, this master is stamped into another piece of metal. Metal is coated in lawyer. I don't know what that means, Steve. Metal lacquer. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, metal is coated in lacquer. So then what happens is so a master. I lost my place. So it's like so it produces a metal master, and then the master is stamped, and that creates something called the mother, right? So you're still following me? So we went from the lacquer to the metal master to the mother, right? So that's 3 steps. The mother is this like nickel plate, whatever. It's like a metal. It's a whatever. It's a fucking. It's like a stamp, right? And then that's used to form what's known as the stamper. And a mother can produce 10 stampers, something like that. One of these can produce 10 more of these, and then the stampers. And then what you do is you stamp vinyl. You stamp the vinyl, and that's how you make it. And then after a certain number, the stamper wears out, and you have to make a new one. You have to start the process all over again. And so backtrack to George Germain's filing cabinet. Okay, Steve says no. Steve, correct me. Whatever it is, just write it in the thing and correct it, because I don't fucking know. So Tank, aka Jonathan Grimm, he opens up this filing cabinet, right? And inside is this. What are we talking about? Cherry, we are talking about the boring process of how records are made, but it's kind of cool because the Misfits were so involved in the making of their own records. And we're talking about this guy, George Germain, who was a producer and benefactor and just a father figure to this band and the people around this band. Steve Zing knew him very well. A lot of people knew him very well. I believe he's actually also behind, he's just behind a lot of different releases. In one of his filing cabinets was the test press. It was a test pressing, essentially, or like an acetate. No, test pressing is different from acetate. A test pressing is a test pressing of a vinyl. An acetate, so what this is this acetate is like this incredibly delicate record that can only be played 5 times. That's what an acetate is. And it's used just for testing. So what the Misfits would do is, just like anybody else recording their own shit, and the thing was, that was how punk rock and DIY Glenn was. He would just fucking figure the shit out himself. Or he probably had George Germain, fucking like, show him what to do. Probably go, hey, George, I don't know, Steve, can you speak to that? Hey, George, what's the next step? What's the next step? And George is like, George, who knows about a lot of different shit, is like, well, now you're going to do this, Glenn. Now you're going to do this. What do I know? So you get the acetate made up, right? And then you listen to it, but you can only play it 5 times. So when the band went into the studio, they had 17 or 18 or 30, I think it was 30 hours of recording time that they got because they had the name Blank Records, and Per Ubu was putting out, everybody knows this story, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Steve says we would listen to the test pressings at George's. Right. Okay, so that's really fucking cool. So they would go and they'd listen to the test pressings. And the reason why you want to listen to a test pressing is because you want to make sure everything sounds good. You want to make sure the mastering survived the mixing process on the tape and made it onto the vinyl, made it onto the record okay. So it's like, oh yeah, everything's good, and then you can go and do a 1,000 of this record, 1,000 of that record. You know what I mean? But here's the thing, after you listen to it like 5 times, the needle would wear out the grooves on the acetate and it could no longer be listened to. So there was a release, I don't know where, Steve, maybe you know, I don't know, does anybody know where the Teenagers from Mars canceled release is in the chronology? It obviously it predates Bullet. They recorded their 17 songs. Nobody wanted to put them out. So Glenn picks some songs. First, I guess, Teenagers from Mars. And I forget what was on the back of it. But they pressed up 5 of them, right? And 5 of them were... Okay, there was 5 of them. 4 of them went to the band. And 1 of them was in the Max's Kansas City jukebox, which Peter Crowley, who used to run Max's Kansas City, told me about. And so George... Not only did he have one of these acetates just hanging out in this filing cabinet in the this was the 90s when Jonathan Grimm found it. Not only did he have one of these acetates in there, but it was a double-sided acetate. So it wasn't just 1 of 5, it was 1 of 1. It was the variant. It's like the single rarest of rare records, I guess, in all of existence of Misfitsdom, in that sort of, if you're collecting shit, right? It's like the ultimate thing. And it sold at the time, I think in 2005 or 6, it sold for $10,000, which is what Jonathan Grimm, aka Tank, sold it off for. And Steve Zing told Jonathan Grimm something that helped him to convince him to sell his collection, because Steve used to be a big collector too. Matter of fact, Steve Zing used to have that big sign that said the Misfits in this, that they used in those Halloween shows at Irving Plaza. He had that big Misfits display. I don't know how they made that. Of course they probably made it in their father's pro-ed shop. But he had that big Misfits display. He had a big collection too. And what he told Jonathan Grimm, I'm telling your stories, Steve. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, bro. But this is really your story. This is Steve's story. Or no, this is Jonathan's story. But this happened with Steve. He said to him something along the lines of, the memories are all that matter. The stuff is just materials. It's just stuff. And as long as you have the memories, you can let go of the stuff. And I think that's just such a beautiful philosophy, because, you know, it's like we're so attached to material shit, and like there's like this hoarder mentality when it comes to collecting, and eventually collections, they just get so big and unwieldy and heavy, and they're just too much to drag around. And so it's like, at some point, when do you let go? And, you know, for that dude, he was trying to buy a house. And he heard those words from Steve, and it was one of the deciding factors that led him to sell his collection. The infamous Grimm collection was split up 4 ways. Do you know how much it sold for? Can anybody guess how much Jonathan Grimm was able to sell his collection for in order to make a down payment on his house? He made a down payment on his house from his love of the Misfits. His passion and love for the Misfits bought him the house that he would later live in with his family. I can't think of anything more beautiful. Can anybody think of a number? I know there's a lag on this thing, but if nobody answers in the next 5 seconds, I'm just gonna... That's correct. Well, Steve, Steve does... Of course Steve knows the answer. Yes, he sold it for $50,000. 4 different people. Unfucking believable. Was single... Umberto says Grimm's acetate that sold for $10K was single-sided. Umberto, from my understanding, that's not correct. It was a double-sided acetate. And here's the story to go along with that. Steve, I don't know if you know this story. Umberto, I don't know if you know this story, but it's a great fucking story. This is what made me think to even talk about this tonight in the broadcast. So flashback. So this guy, Jonathan Grimm, before he even starts working for Jerry and Doyle and the new Misfits, he's like a huge Danzig nut. As a matter of fact, there's a local legend in the early 90s, and this is how this is what Mark Kennedy told me. Mark Kennedy from Misfit Central. He said that when living in Virginia, they live very close to D.C., that people all the time would spot Danzig walking around this Virginia mall. And Mark always thought that was really fucking weird. I'm paraphrasing this story, by the way. I might be getting details wrong. Just want to put that out there. Mark always thought that was really fucking weird. He was like, what? Danzig is walking around Virginia, a Virginia mall? Like, what the fuck? That's weird. Like, I don't know. Bizarre. And then one day he met Jonathan Grimm and realized that this was the guy. This guy, Jonathan Grimm, was just such a big Danzig fan that he started dressing like Danzig, and he's this huge, muscular, guy. He does a lot of cosplaying. He cosplays as the Humongous now from Mad Max 2, and he's just this big, muscular guy. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are trading stills from. They think it's Mad Max Road Warrior. It's actually Tank cosplaying as the Humongous. That's how good of a cosplayer is. Well, back in the day, he was cosplaying as Glenn Danzig, and everybody thought Glenn Danzig he was like Bigfoot roaming around the fucking Virginia mall. Like, Glenn is just at this mall. So he was a huge fan, and he would go and follow Glenn on tour. He would go, went to every show on the Lucifuge tour, and that's where he met Elizabeth Boris. Sorry, Elizabeth, if I am just butchering your name. So Elizabeth, Mark Kennedy, and Jonathan Grimm were like these. They're like these three like pretty big like Misfits collectors from the 90s / like catalogers, whatever you want to call them. And Elizabeth too, who is an absolute sweetheart, who I had the pleasure of speaking with a while back. She and every once in a while you'll see Elizabeth at shows. She still goes to shows, and she's awesome. She started hanging out with Jonathan Grimm. They became really good friends. They would go to every single Danzig show, and I guess they'd meet him afterwards, always, whatever, blah blah blah. In any case, cut back to George Germain's filing cabinet with the test pressing of the acetate of Teenagers from Mars. I'm telling you, the story is going somewhere. We're getting somewhere with the story. I promise. Tank, Jonathan Grimm, decides that he wants to get this signed by all 4 members of the Static Age band. Franche Coma, Mr. Jim, Jerry Only, and Glenn Danzig. And he knows he can get Jerry Only real easy, and I guess he tracked down Franche Coma, and he tracked down Mr. Jim. Had to get Glenn Danzig. So he tells Elizabeth, who knew Glenn back in the day. I guess maybe she used to take photos of him. And, and another guy, too, obviously, Devilman. Devilman was another one of these collectors who sort of followed the band and would go to a lot of shows and whatever. But Elizabeth was talking with Glenn after a show one day and was like, that guy, he's gonna come by with this test pressing, and he's gonna try and get it signed. Not test pressing, the Teenagers from Mars acetate. And Glenn said that he would refuse to sign it and that he would break it on site if it was presented to him. Because what Glenn would do back in the days, back in the first incarnation of Danzig, when Glenn was Glenn's always a very serious guy, obviously, but like I guess he was, when he took himself uber seriously and like didn't want to talk anything about the Misfits at all. Like he didn't want to, don't ever bring up the Misfits and blah, 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 but yet would sign stuff if it was official. I don't know, whatever. Back in the days. Oh, shit. This is fucked up. So back in the first so yeah, if you brought Glenn in the 90s, if you brought him records that were bootlegs, or if Glenn would look at your record when he was signing it, it was a bootleg, he'd fucking break that shit. He'd be like, he would refuse to sign it, or he'd break it, or he'd throw it, or whatever. And so Jonathan Grimm is much bigger than Glenn, and he shows up after the show, hands the fucking acetate to Glenn. Glenn looks at the acetate, realizes what it is, looks at Jonathan Grimm, realizes who he is, and just just doesn't do anything that he said he was going to do, that he told Elizabeth. he didn't break it. He didn't, throw it or anything. He's like, oh, cool, man. Where'd you get this? And he signed it for Jonathan Grimm. Upon seeing how big Jonathan Grimm was, this big cloned version of Glenn, like this really big dude with this devil lock, and like, here, sign this. So there's that story. And he got all 4 signatures on that. And that went for $10,000. Unfucking believable. What else was in that filing cabinet? I believe there were 12-inch acetates of Horror Business and Night of the Living Dead. So this is really kind of crazy. And Steve, maybe you know why, if you're still listening. Why were 12-inch acetates made of Horror Business and Night of the Living Dead if they were 7-inch singles? And at the time, so George passed away, and Steve helped get those taken care of. And so I'm kind of curious. Maybe Steve knows why they were 12 inches instead of 7 inches. He actually saw them in person. Jonathan Grimm did not have the bread at the time to purchase them to add to his collection. But yeah, it is kind of interesting that a 12-inch acetate would be used for a 7-inch vinyl. You would think maybe they would use a 7-inch acetate. Maybe they don't make 7-inch acetates. I don't fucking know. This conversation is really fucking nerdy and really, 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 really sort of whatever. Sort of like technical. Let's move on now. Let's talk about the show. And I'm going to close with this because I'm super hoarse and dying. Been talking for a long time. I don't know how long I've been talking for. An hour and 34 minutes. Okay, that's a long time. I feel like I've been tripping over my words a lot. Okay, so every week now, as I've been experimenting with this sort of online content, trying to listen back to interviews I did and just sort of like cull things and whatnot. We've been talking about one song from this incredible tape that I got to listen to when I met with Manny Martinez, the original Misfits drummer. And so far what's up, Frank? How are you? Hope you are well. And so I've been talking about a new song every single week. Okay, here we go. Jeff says, blank acetates used as available probably didn't have any blank 7 inches at the time. Okay, that makes sense. Another interesting note. So George Germain, let's go back to George Germain because that just jogged my memory. So George Germain, in all of his technicality, did 2 other really, really cool fucking things with the Misfits. The first thing that he did was, because he knew so much about guitars, and again, Steve, if I don't know what I'm talking about, correct me here, but I'm pretty sure this is correct. George was the one who advised both Doyle and Jerry on changing the pickups in the Rickenbacker and Iceman Ibanez guitars that they used, because after a while they would start to use knockoffs and they would just smash the shit out of them. They'd buy these knockoffs, they'd replace the shitty pickups with good pickups based on George Germain's recommendation, and then they would just smash the fuck out of them and repair them and do this, that, and the other. And they were able to do that, all that technical stuff, under guidance of George Germain, which probably would go on probably to influence Doyle and Jerry, sort of workshopping how to build their Devastator. And what is Jerry calls this the Devastator and Doyle's is the what? The Abominator guitar? No, it's the Devastator. Did I just say Devastator? There's the Devastator. What the hell is the name of Doyle's guitar? The Annihilator? It's a D word maybe? Whatever. They're 2 guitars they built. They probably a lot of that knowledge came from George, that they took their machine shop know-how and George's, technical know-how, and they would just build these guitars. And essentially, those guitars they're made from graphite, and there's like a bar. It's like a bar. This is like the frets, and then this is the place where you strum, right? And then like everything else, like the wings and shit that come off the side and like whatever, all the spikiness of these guitars, that's all just for show. you could literally just have this single bar and play it, and it would be like, this could be the guitar, right? Like, this is the guitar. All the workingness, all the working parts of the guitar is this single bar, and then everything else built out on both sides is just for show. And that's what that Devastator bass and the Annihilator guitar kind of are. And you can see it when you see up-close pictures. The other thing that George Germain would do is he would record the shows for the guys. And so that George Germain is the reason why that Max's Kansas City show from 1978, December 20th, 1978, the one where the band does Blue Christmas for like 30 seconds. That is all because of George Germain. George Germain would record the shows or record some shows, and I believe he would also helped with transferring that show, because, you know, when the Misfits came back, or, you know, whatever, resurrected, like, they were trying, in addition to doing the Static Age record, putting that out, in addition to the box set that was coming out, they were also trying to release Live at Max's Kansas City from 78. But here's the thing. The recording was not that great. It was not a good recording. And so what Glenn and Jerry tried to do was they tried to overdub their Devastator, you know, these guitars that sounded like... Because back then, in 78 and 79, Jerry was still playing a regular Rickenbacker bass. And he was actually, like, plucking the strings. He wasn't, you know, you see Jerry playing now. When Jerry plays today, he's like, Jerry only, he's like mashing the strings and just to make, you know, these distorted bass sounds. But back then he actually plucked the strings, and you can hear it on that Misfits Manny's tape. You can hear it on the, you can kind of hear it a little bit on the Max's Kansas City tape from 78. And there are some other things floating around out there where you can absolutely hear that is the case of what is Jerry doing. And Jerry's like a pretty fucking... Okay, here's another thing that I can't speak to. Steve, Umberto, anybody. This is another interesting, funny tidbit about Jerry Only. So Jerry Only puts the same two strings on his guitar. E-A-E-A? Or E-E-A-A? I don't know, something like that. He doesn't use the other strings, so he just started stringing up. He started stringing up the same two strings. I don't know why. I don't know what the logic is behind that. Just in the way I don't know why he wears those weird spaghetti strings around his arms. I guess to make him look like a wrestler and more beefy or something. Although he's already pretty muscular to begin with. Yeah, another one of life's mysteries. So anyway, George would record that shit, and in the 90s, George oversaw the transferring of that stuff. They went down to the studio, Babaleka's studio, and Babaleka was one of the engineers for Static Age, the Static Age recordings, I believe. And Frank says, I think he used to, not anymore. Okay. Well, I don't know what the reasoning was behind that, but I had heard that. And Tanner says so that when he breaks a string, he continue to use the bass. Yeah, that's pretty great. I think that's just pretty awesome. And it's just like every Misfits song doesn't require 4 strings. It just requires the 2, blah, 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 you know what I mean? That's pretty funny. So getting back to the 90s. So George Germain is overseeing in Babaleka's studio, the transfer of this thing, and Jerry and Doyle are trying to do these overdubs to this subpar recording that we all have. That's like it's just a great document of the band in 1978. And it sounds, and then they had Dr. Chud trying to do the drums and stuff, and they wanted Glenn to come in and redo the vocals, at least according to Jonathan Grimm. And they shelved the project and never came out. And if you've heard with those overdubs, it sounds pretty not that great. Frank says that it fucked up his necks on the guitars, though. Yeah, I would imagine so, right? Because you have to turn the knobs, the tuning, whatever things tighter to make that happen or something. I don't know. Moving on. Yeah, so George Germain and who knows what other recordings George Germain might have had in his possession, or lost to time, or didn't get sorted when he passed away. I don't know. I can only imagine the treasure trove, because in this filing cabinet, and this is how Tank, aka Jonathan Grimm, said to me, imagine there are a few moments in your life where you have a George Germain filing cabinet moment. Imagine you're the biggest fucking Misfits collector in the world. You're sorting through something, or you're looking through something. You open a filing cabinet and you find, not only did they find the Teenagers from Mars acetate, but there were the Night of the Living Dead acetate, there was the Horror Business acetate, and then there was the Who Killed Marilyn acetate. And Jerry, because Jerry could be, Frank says that it causes too much tension on the neck, which causes the fucks up the neck on the guitar. So imagine you're a Misfits collector, you just stumble upon this acetate, and Jerry Only, we hear many different stories about Jerry Only and what kind of guy he is. I've heard so many stories about how generous and gregarious Jerry Only is. He's just like, when it comes to people that are his fans and stuff, he is like, he's just a fucking mensch. That's what we call it in Judaism. We call it a mensch. Just a guy that just like he's just super fucking generous and does cool shit impulsively on a whim. Like Harley Flanagan is like right next to Jerry Only, and he's like, "Here, kid, have my bass." And it's like the bass that he played Walk Among Us on. You know what I mean? Like, and so Harley Flanagan had this Jerry Only bass, this one-of-a-kind Jerry Only bass that he was trying to sell. So before he got into a knife fight in 2012, I was trying to get him to do an interview for this documentary. And he was calling me. We were talking on the phone. I was trying to help him find a seller. I was trying to help him find an appraisal for his Jerry Only bass. And I actually called Jonathan Grimm up and I asked him, what is something like that? Like, what do you quantify a one-of-a-kind instrument, a Rickenbacker customized, knocked-off guitar with probably customized pickups that was used to record a seminal punk rock album? How much does that go for? And John was like, it's priceless. You can't put a price on an instrument like that. However, you have to throw a figure out at some point, and so he said $10,000, and that's how much that Harley. And I believe Harley actually sold it for $5,000. But still, that's a nice chunk of change for a bass. And and Jerry just like throws this stuff. When we talked about this the other day in New York City on Halloween in October. Jerry hands that girl in the wheelchair. She's floating above the crowd. I don't know who is watching right now that saw that shit, but it was unfucking believable. This girl who's in the pit all night, she's in a wheelchair. She's crowd surfing towards Jerry. Jerry takes off his fucking bass. It's a red Devastator custom-made bass that he was going to probably smash anyway, and he hands it to her. It's just really fucking cool shit. So what does Jerry do with Jonathan Grimm? As Jonathan Grimm opens up his filing cabinet and finds the Teenagers from Mars test pressing, he goes, "There you go, kid, take it." He just hands Jonathan Grimm this fucking record. He hands him this fucking priceless record. He goes, "Here, Jonathan Grimm has this ass." And, because Jonathan Grimm would drive up from Virginia to Lodi, to Vernon, because they lived in Vernon, New Jersey at this point, to just, like, help out with the band. He helped painting, like, tombstones that were used for, like, music videos and just stuff like that. And he would just do it. He wasn't getting paid. He just did it because he fucking loved this band so much. And I guess Jerry fucking saw that and appreciated that. And so he hands him this record. What does that record turns out to be a $10,000 record. And I'd say Jonathan Grimm probably earned it with all the, work he did for those guys. And he did a lot of work for those guys. So moving on now to the, we talked about all that stuff. I'm looking at my notes. Okay. So here's my notes from the show. So as I said previously, I listened to this recording 3 years ago, and, I took notes. The first thing I did after I listened to this recording from 1977, when the Misfits were still a three-piece, although actually Frank has confirmed after speaking to his father that he did play on half of that show. Russ says, met Jerry in Rockford, Illinois, invited us backstage for sound check, and the show, one of the nicest guys ever met. Yeah, dude, he's just a fucking mensch to his fans. He's just a nice fucking guy. You can't argue with that, right? So, back to what I was saying. My notes. So I listened to the show afterwards, the same day, I wrote down notes for this show and wrote down what I was thinking about at the time. I was even writing things down so I wouldn't forget anything. I was writing things down while we were listening to the show. I wanted to remember this shit forever. Frank says, a lot of people hate on Jerry, but he is very, very, very generous to his fans. He would give a stranger the shirt off his back and love to help those in need. Frank, I totally 1000% agree with you on that. He really is a really, really, really nice guy. And he really, really is generous and very charitable. You can't argue with that shit. No matter what you may have heard. So what we're going to talk about now is Infant Stranger. That's right. I just said Infant Stranger. What the fuck is that? Or like, wait, what is that Misfits song? Yeah, that's a Misfits song. Blew my fucking mind when I found out. So we've gone through, we did track 3 2 weeks ago. We did track 4 last week, and now we're doing track 5 tonight. And these are my thoughts on Infant Stranger, both at the time and slightly expanded. Yes, Frank, I agree. Super cool. Oh, you're talking about this super? Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, it was fucking one of the most incredible experiences of my life as a Misfits fan. Infant Stranger, hearing Harpies in the night. Again, at the time I wrote this, I'm pretty sure that I was listening to Harpies in the night. I still think I was listening to Harpies in the night. Who fucking knows? I will from time to time pause reading the notes to talk to you about this, that, or the other. Hearing Harpies in the night was an unbelievable experience that I never thought I would get in my life. Then life, fate, whatever you want to call it, said, here, hold my beer. The next track begins. Another Doors tune. My brain can't place it. So you know when you're like, sometimes when you listen to music at a really loud volume and you can't like make out what the fuck you're hearing, you're like, oh, I think I'm hearing this. And you're like not really sure what it is that you're hearing. You're just kind of like, you're trying to discern what it is, but the music's too loud, it's too distorted or whatever. My brain is trying to like register what it is that I'm hearing right now. This is no Misfits song I recognize. My brain can't place it, let alone comprehend the incomprehensible, because that's what this was. This was okay, as I just talked about Tank saying that, you know, every once in a while you get a George Germain's bottom drawer in his filing cabinet. This was my George Germain's bottom drawer in a filing cabinet. My brain can't place it, let alone comprehend the incomprehensible. Manny tells me it's Infant Stranger. What the fuck is Infant Stranger? Holy shit. What the fuck is Infant Stranger? That is not how it was supposed to go today. Like, this is not what this is not what I was planning. I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to get to hear that Marble Index song. Oh, maybe I'm going to get to hear West End Avenue, which I did. Maybe I'm going to get to hear Harpies in the Night, which I did. Maybe I will get to hear Feline Nursery. I would. But there was no plan for Infant Stranger. Nobody knows what Infant Stranger is. It doesn't exist. We never would have known it existed if it was not for this tape. Manny had mentioned talking about a song called Marble Index. We knew about the other 3 from Misfits Central. And Glenn's pre-Fits bands were playing half covers, half originals. So the bands that Glenn was in before Misfits were playing covers like New York Dolls, Lou Reed songs, Blue Cheer, stuff like that. Probably some Black Sabbath. And then they were doing original songs. But no one's ever mentioned this track, Infant Stranger. So I say, but never was there made mention of this track. And I say that, and this is my description. It's dripping in the Doors. That's what it is, man. Infant Stranger is just another one of those insane, just doorsy, doors, doory, door, doorsy, door tracks. It's just very Doors. Like all the other ones, man. It's just, that's what it is. Okay. If the band had put out an album of this art rock piano, bass drums, or perhaps even recorded an LP in June of 77. So, going back to, if I can find it was just here. hell? So going back to when they recorded Cough Cool, man. What if they... So here's an interesting thought. Maybe you've never thought of this. What if the band had not recorded a 7-inch? Just in the way that they had done 17 songs in the Static Age sessions, what if they did 17 songs when they were recording Cough Cool? You know what I mean? So I was thinking in my head, I was kind of like, so what if the band had put out this like art rock version of themselves as like an LP? Infant Stranger might feel like a filler on that album. Okay? So it's not like it's not that it's lackluster. It's very interesting. And it's especially interesting because it's this lost song. It's a song that's literally lost to time. As far as we know, there's no studio recording. It was never recorded. It's never been mentioned by anybody. Mark Kennedy doesn't know what this is. Nobody knew what this was. You know, nobody in the fucking band that would come since would know what it is. The only person that I saw that Teenagers from Mars 7-inch on eBay last year for $30. Frank, I guarantee it was not that Teenagers from Mars. We're not talking about the 7-inch. We're talking about an acetate that for a 12-inch single that never came out back in 78. It was canceled, and it went for $10,000. Point is that if they were doing a lot of material, Infant Stranger might feel a little bit like filler. But it is still great. It's great because it's new and because it's different. Once again, Glenn's vocals are the showcase, while the piano, drums, and bass drive the song forward. I don't know how else to describe it. I put great emphasis on the Doors and their influence on the band at this time. But here's something that's interesting about Infant Stranger that you kind of get it on West End Avenue. You kind of get it on, well, in your defense, Frank, that whole story that I just told was so, like, convoluted and I stumbled over myself. I can't even imagine how anybody followed what I was even saying. So, I don't know. But, I put great emphasis on the Doors for, like, West End Avenue and, like, the other songs. But this one's a little bit different. Infant Stranger is an important reminder of the crooners that Glenn grew up listening to. Obviously, there's Elvis, but also stuff like the Everly Brothers and Dion. So that was my biggest takeaway from this song is that it's really more of a crooner, and it's a crooner with a piano, right? And it's kind of like, I remember this. It's like Infant Stranger. No. Doom, doom, doom. Infant. It's just Infant Stranger over and over again. He's like, Infant Stranger, infant. No, I'm totally butchering. That's not what it is. Do not listen to me at all. That's not what it is. He says Infant Stranger, and then it's like, da-na-na, but it's super croony. Da-na-na, dun-dun-dun-dun. So, I don't know, something like that. It was like, Infant Stranger, something along those lines. I see you. Do-do-do. And then what's interesting is Jerry's bass is really cool. Going back to like when he was plucking, you could tell he's plucking because he's going do-do-do-do-do-do. Like he does this thing in the background when Glenn is stretching the notes, we're going, I see you. And then the you can hear the bass sort of rises up like it's like as if it's like a hill. It's like doom doo 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 doo. Yeah, I know, Frank. I mean, dude, it's like hard to do this. Like it's really hard to like filibuster for such a long time. Maybe I should try and make it more structured. So yeah, it felt more, so it reminded me of crooning. Imagine if you could, that the piano, drums, and bass are laying down some foreboding yet seductive rhythms. The piano, particularly in this punky art rock kind of way, but with the same chords, fundamentals, notes, tone. I don't know. Like, I don't know what you would describe it as a dark crooning Frank Sinatra song. So what I'm saying is the instrumentation is dark and foreboding. It almost feels like this is Glenn's Glenn doing a dark, crooning Frank Sinatra song, but as the cough cool Misfits. Okay, that's the best way to describe the song. I could easily imagine how great it would be in the studio with the right production. A question that I asked myself after listening to this. John says, my brother ran into Glenn at Amoeba Records in LA. They spoke of Glenn's influences, and he mentioned Manfred Mann of all acts. Interesting. You know, I've never listened to Manfred Mann, but I'm definitely going to check it out to see if I can hear any of that stuff. Where does Infant Stranger fit into the Misfits continuity? Perhaps it predates the Misfits entirely, and its material is from the pre-Misfits bands, the prefix bands. And that's what I started to think about. I'm like, is Infant Stranger one of those songs from Prostitutes of New York? Prostitutes of New York was one of Glenn's bands before the Misfits. Another band he had was the Kudat and Boojang band. Another band he had was called Talus. And so perhaps without enough material written at the time, or perhaps, you know, trying out different things and experimenting, Infant Stranger is one of these super early lost to time songs that just was thrown into the set or was being rehearsed, and obviously got dropped when Frank Sr., when Franche Coma joined the band on guitar. My last line, and this is for next week. Wherever Infant Stranger comes from, Lullaby feels like it comes from the same place. More on that another time. So Lullaby is the other lost track. That's right. It's not just Infant Stranger. There is this motherfucking song called Motherfucking Lullaby, and we're going to get to it, and that song too. So not only did I hear Infant Stranger, but I heard the song Lullaby. And yeah. Infant Stranger. It's an interesting song. Infant Stranger, Infant Stranger, something like that. Oh, and the piano's like, dun, dun. Oh no, not the piano. Yeah, the piano goes. He goes, dun, 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 dun. There's like this. It's either the piano or the bass is going, dun, 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 dun. Again, not a musician. Do not know how to do music shit. Trying to tell you things from a non-musician perspective. I see you, do, 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 do. Something like that. And, yeah, man, this fucking band is just continues, there's an ocean of things to talk about and discuss. Thanks, Frank. Have a good one, man. Thanks for tuning in. I don't know, does anybody have any comments? Interesting things? Oh, Jeff, that is just like the nicest thing ever. Thank you for listening, man. I don't know how you could listen all night, because honestly, I feel like if I was listening to me, I would die, because it's like, dude, stick to the fucking story. I'm like, stop stumbling over your words, blah, blah, blah. You know, I like listen back from week to week, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't like hold it together. It's hard. I try to use the notes. But yeah, that's, I guess that's it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Anybody else have anything they want to contribute or add or discuss, while we're still here? Let's see how long we've been going for. Probably, oh my God, we just knocked out the, 2-hour mark. Boom. Okay. That is, I think that's a new record. Actually, no, the first show went longer. But this time I plugged in my phone. Last time my phone was running on battery and it died. Okay. I have an idea, and maybe we could do this next week. Does anybody have any cool, like, Misfits show and tell shit they want to fucking post in the comments? Who is something that's really fucking cool, that's Misfits related, that we can see that's awesome? If you'll notice, by the way, my Video Business Media hat takes its template, like I said, from Horror Business, which I fucking love. That's Horror Business right there. Well, we had a lot of people of note fly into this broadcast tonight. That was pretty cool. You can see the No Bunny pin. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, shout out to Robbie Bloodshed made this. This is a reproduction of the one. So, you know, okay, so here's a quick story. Everybody knows the whole thing, like, what does 138 mean? Like, what does 138? It's one of the biggest mysteries surrounding this band. And a lot of people think 138 comes from THX 138. Glenn has famously said it's about famously said it's just about violence. You don't know what it's about. It's about violence, and that's something that we used to quote all the time in Misfits Central. But Glenn and the band, Glenn and Jerry probably really, they had this inside joke. And back in the day, and I know this from Misfits Central, I used to ask it in all my interviews. Back in the day, they would wear these buttons, which I just showed you. Adam, who made this button? This guy, Robbie Bloodshed. I used to make music videos for Robbie. He used to hire me out to do music videos for him. Really nice guy. And he made these pins up. Robbie is a diehard Misfits fan like myself. And this is, I don't know, I had never seen the pin. He found a photo of the pin, and he had he made them, and he gave me one. And, who made the hat? The hat was made, I had this hat made. I designed the logo, and I had the hat made myself. I had it, see, so as I previously discussed on an episode, if you wanted to make a t-shirt, it was really fucking hard. For Glenn, Jerry, Erie, Doyle, all those guys, it was really hard to make a t-shirt. For me, it was really easy. I just created my design. And so what I did with this is, I did, I scanned this in, right? I scanned Horror Business into my scanner. And then I just photoshopped this. I changed it from Horror Business to Video Business because this was my, boutique sort of company at the time. And I had, these shirts are like 8 years old now. The last of their kind. I had 50 pressed up. And, motherfucker! I had 50 pressed up, and yeah, I just thought it was cool. Video Business. Now, Video Business with this logo is like the shit. Like, people are like, oh, I get it. Like, Horror Business, ha ha ha. But when you see video printed, just printed in plain text, like on a piece of paper, it's not that interesting. It's just Video Business Media. It looks stupid. And for years and years and years, I suffered. I think I really suffered brand-wise from that. It only made sense when you had Video Business. But yeah, so Robbie had these buttons made up, and people would ask him, what does 138 mean? Because you can see 138. I don't know if you can see it. Got to get really close up. People would ask and go, what does 138 mean? And Glenn and Jerry and whoever, part of the inside joke, is be like, what, you don't know what it means? Oh, you fucking idiot. And they make fun of them. They'd rag on them. They'd rag on him and be like, oh man, I can't believe you don't know what 138 means. Blah, blah, blah. We are 138. More of that beatnik poetry. Do you think we're robot clean? Does his face look almost mean? It's time to be an android, not a man. With pleasantries are gone. Something, something, something. In the eyes of the tiger. You know what's funny? I don't care if who is playing that solo. It never sounds like it does on Static Age. Nobody can play that solo, man. Nobody can replicate it. There's something about it. It sounds perfect on Static Age. I don't know if it's like the speed they played it at or whatever, but it's just like, or they sped it up. They sped up the tape when they were whatever. So yeah. But now Video Business Media is dead. It no longer exists. I dissolved it. It was never really an LLC to begin with. Now it's Frumess Films LLC, which I have a page for. I'm going to put that in the notes if anybody wants to like or support. If you want to, like or support this, you can. And, yeah, does anybody have anything they want to fucking share? Anything? Like, anything cool? Like, come on, guys. Let's see, Frumess Films LLC. That should work. I don't know. Does anybody have anything cool that they want to add, or share? Yeah. So if you hover over that link, you'll see my new logo, which is taken from A Trip to the Moon, the first science fiction film from 1902. It's this public domain image, and it's just way fucking cooler than this, even though I love this. And I'll still wear this hat forever because it's like my hat. Toured with this hat. It's been everywhere from Israel all the way to California to Moscow to, just anywhere and everywhere I've worn this hat. And I continue to wear it here down in the basement studio in the Shadow Gallery. But yeah, does anybody have anything else cool that they want to share or, show and tell? Steve, I know Steve has a lot of cool shit. Steve has the coolest shit ever. Actually, Steve gave me a really cool button that I cherish to this day. He gave me a Samhain button for my birthday. It was really, really nice. He gave me this button and he said, take care of it. There aren't many like it. And I was like, holy shit. And I still have it to this day in a drawer. I don't let it decorate anything because I'm too afraid I'm going to lose it. So it just sits in a drawer, which is kind of sad. Should really be enjoyed. But those pins back in the day, they don't have like a clasp in the back. It's just like a pin. So you could really stab yourself if you're not careful. Yeah, I don't know. Come on, guys. Does anybody anything? Are we done here? So I'm gonna close up shop. Kind of getting tired, worn down. Is there anything else I missed? Talked about Elizabeth. Elizabeth had some collection too. I don't think Mark Kennedy had much of a collection. We still have a few videos to do. That's right, Steve. I'm waiting. Steve, come on, buddy. We gotta get on this. We have to drive around Lodi, man. Come on. It's gotta happen. Yes, John. A trip to the moon, that is correct. And I think just like the way that the Misfits have the Crimson Ghost as their logo, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna, instead of copying everything that the fucking Misfits do, I'm gonna still be like them, but I'm gonna be like them in my own way. I'm gonna use the moon face from A Trip to the Moon, and that's gonna be my little thing. So I don't know. Trying to think what else. Steve, if you're still listening, how was I reciting that information? Was I somewhat accurate? Pretty far off? I think I tried my best to remember. A lot of stuff floating around. I have all these interviews. Gotta re-listen to all of them. But it was fun to listen. I listened to some stuff today, and it was just amazing to take a trip down memory lane. So many informational tidbits that I sort of had forgotten. Oh, here's another interesting tidbit. Whose favorite, Mr. Jim's favorite song to play when he was in the Misfits was Comeback. That was his favorite song to play. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, Mr. Jim loved playing Comeback. And you know what's funny about Comeback too? Like, everybody kind of hates on that song. It's kind of like the it's kind of like the Freebird of Misfit songs because it's so goddamn long. But I actually really like Comeback a lot. I think it's just a really interesting track, and it's kind of a leftover from that art rock 3-piece piano, drums, bass, because that's what it's really built around. The guitar doesn't really have a lot to do in Comeback, As a matter of fact, if you listen to the Static Age version of Comeback, I almost feel like it's the bass that's really sort of like the showcased. Dun 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 dun. Mr. Jim's just finding a place to do his little fills and stuff. I'd love to play the records themselves, but I don't want Facebook to censor my video, which has been happening when I do my other broadcasts. They won't let me, so I haven't really had a listening party on here. That would be kind of fun to do maybe one day, talk about something like that. But even in the lyrics of Comeback, once again, a song that does not rhyme at all, it's like, what the fuck is he talking about? He's talking about resurrection. He's talking about some weird shit. Another weird song, too, is Theme for a Jackal, which is also on that tape, that Manny tape. Those lyrics are fucking dark. Hold on, I'm going to pull them up real quick. Theme for a Jackal. What is Theme for a Jackal? A jackal is obviously some sort of killer, right? Dry drunk on a corner. Wet waste of a girl. Theme for a jackal. Play your death song. You'll probably listen. Stand idly by as they rape your children, like you do now. In fact, you show them how. Spit, jackal, spit. Die, sweet prince. Meat tastes like shit. Enough to make that jackal spit. Spit, jackal, spit. And this... So, a long time ago, I was doing an interview with a musician who I will not name, and we were talking about Theme for a Jackal, and that's when I really started to notice how great Theme for a Jackal is. And, yes, John, I agree. It is sort of offbeat. You can really tell someone loves the fucking Misfits when they love Comeback and Theme for a Jackal, because they're not typically songs that everybody loves. But this line was showcased. This person who I interviewed, he showcased this line, and I thought it was really fucking interesting. Dead daughter in the river, entrance gained by her liver. Whew. Dead daughter in the river, entrance gained. Oh, that rhymes. I guess I just proved myself wrong. Glenn does rhyme sometimes. Dead daughter in the river, entrance gate. But is that the only rhyme in all of Misfit songs? Seriously. Oh, no. Like you do now. In fact, you show them how. All right, maybe there's a little bit of rhyming, but not really. Okay, bye, Steve. Say hello to Otis for me and Lana. Bye-bye. But yeah, like, what a fucking creepy fucking, like, what a really creepy fucking song. What else? What else is there? This is fun. This is interesting. What about Cough Cool? It's very opportunistic. We could talk about Cough Cool. Actually, are you guys familiar with, okay, this guy, hold on, Misfit songs, literal meanings. This is fucking great. I've shared this before, but it's literal explanations, I think. Explanations, maybe. Let's see if I can find this real quick. Lyrics summarized. Okay, this is fucking funny as fuck. So this guy, like, went through the entire Misfits catalog, from All Hell Breaks Loose to Wolf's Blood. And John says that Theme for a Jackal, he always got he always thought that Theme for a Jackal was loosely inspired by the Green River Killer. You know, John, I'm not going to lie, I'm not familiar with the Green River Killer. I'm going to have to check that out. But that's interesting. But you see, that's what's interesting about that time in that band. He's writing about, like, very real life things. He's writing about JFK. He's writing about, what else is he writing about? He's writing about JFK getting assassinated. He's writing about, like, TV casualty. I don't know what the fuck he's saying in TV chat. It's fucking great, though. He's saying, like, he's talking about babies in prison, called it a womb, all that sort of shit. He's not writing full-on horror shit. It's more like real-life horror shit. So maybe that, like, kind of, like, fits in there a little bit. Although that's not true, because you have songs like Return of the Fly, where he's literally summarizing, oh, we have zombie Alex in the hood. Right. Thank you, Bob. That's what I meant to say. He's talking about Patty Hearst, man, in She. So it's like he's writing about, like, real-life shit. And then it slowly goes from, like, if it starts off with real-life shit, and this is, like, you know, horror B-movie shit, and then slowly it changes. From real life shit to B movie shit, and then the B movie shit makes way for, like, Samhain shit, Earth AD shit, right? What's up, Nick? Rock and Roll Nick is in the house. So here's Misfits lyrics summarized. All hell breaks loose. I write songs that make the whole world tear each other from limb to limb. Interesting. American Nightmare. Oh, American Nightmare. There's another song, right? American Nightmare is about somebody who's committed murder and is driving across the United States and trying to run from the police. And I believe American Nightmare was Glenn's response to the Cramps. Don't quote me, but it was a response to the Cramps, or it was his version of doing, like, I don't know, something about the Cramps. Friday night, I took my lover's virginity. At dawn, I put an axe in her head. She looked beautiful, covered in blood. Both acts were too easy. I blame her. Now and forever, I flee civil and spiritual justice. Like, I love that. Like, he's just summarizing this guy, this genius. His name is, I'm going to put this in the comments for everybody. If anybody wants to look at this, if you haven't seen this before. I've posted this on here before. This is fucking great. It's from this guy named Chris Barnhart. Song lyrics summarized in about 50 words. So he's essentially tweeting the summaries of Misfit songs in 50 words or less. Angel fuck. My prostitute is beautiful and can accommodate a man of any size, up to and including a fire hydrant. Like the love she promises you, I tease her with things she'll never have. That's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I mean, these are silly, but they're also kind of like literal. Astro zombies. I am killing the entire human race with my army of space zombies. Can I please get a little appreciation here? Attitude. I wish to warn you that your rudeness, stupidity, and low moral fiber offend me to the point that I may soon inflict physical harm upon your person. Blood feast. There is nothing so intimitably genuine as showing you ownership of a woman by individually extracting each body part and feasting on her blood. But mind you, this guy is summarizing these lyrics, you know, before Glenn Danzig had his lyrics books out. We didn't know what the fuck Glenn was saying. Mark Kennedy didn't know what Glenn was saying. Here in the eye of the genie of death, like, nobody fucking knew what that dude was writing about. He was writing, and then finally Glenn released his lyrics, and suddenly there were great revelations had about, like, American Nightmare. Like, we, like, kind of, like, actually knew what he was really saying. You know, he used to say hot cherry on a Friday night, and there was, what's the real lyric? Hot baby on a Friday night. The sun rolls down my spine. I put an axe in my baby's head. I'm going to end up doing time. Brain eaters. We grow weary of exclusively eating brains. We do not understand why we cannot be given something better or muster the will to obtain it ourselves. Bullet. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, leaving Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis no option but to feed desperately on my ejaculate. That is literally a summary of Bullet. Children in heat. When children reach puberty, they lose all conscience and self-restraint, indulging in vapid fornication, contracting STDs, and running away from home. Attempting to prevent this is futile. Cough cool. We try to mask our fear and sickness behind a cool facade. It is but a thin veil. We have seen too much to hide these things well. How did he get that from Cough Cool? This street we walk upon. Da, 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 da. Where's the lyrics to Cough Cool? Here you go. I mean, this is just poetry, man. This street we walk upon, this corner full of piss and fear. The street won't bear it long. It slants, it tilts, it's brought outside, alive. Cover your face when you walk by. Drench your visions in darkness. Spit up blood when you cough. Cool, 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 cough cool. We dine on visions with new eyes. Creep, 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 creep. We cut out visions with two eyes. Cool, cool, cool. It's pretty fucking cool. I don't know about you guys, but every time I listen to Cough Cool, the very next thing I'm going to hear is Last Caress because of Collection 2, because that's what I grew up on. Death comes ripping. You try to hide, but feel the heat as death, violent and indomitable, comes for you. So, for a long time, I always thought it was, I'm trying to remember what I thought it was, chalked up, hacked up demon piece of lead. That's what the actual line was, but I always thought it was chalked up, hacked up, something piece of meat. Daemonomania. Check me out. I was born to a human prostitute and a wolf. My pride in my lupine ancestry borders on megalomania. Humans are weak and tasty. Daemonomania. But I fucking love Daemonomania. I mean, just like, what a fucking song. Look upon me, I am the beast. I love, humans are weak, what else you fucking do? Humans are weak, I drink your blood. Or I play in your blood? I don't know what it says. Tanner says, kinda off topic, I recently found a fanzine that had a section where bands would send in their lyrics and the ones for Devilock do not match the lyric books. Kind of wonder if Glenn has changed the lyrics over the years. Okay, why is that, Tanner? Why is that off topic? Thank you for contributing something. I think that's great. Let's talk about this. You recently found a fanzine that had a section where bands would send in their lyrics, and the ones for Devilock do not match the lyric books. Tanner, are you talking about Glenn's lyric books, or are you talking about the Misfits box set lyric books? Because I'm about to, I can actually kind of explain that, but I don't know what you're talking about. If you're talking about Glenn's lyric book, oh, you said, kind of wonder if Glenn has changed the lyrics over the years. Well, Glenn put out the lyrics. I could shoot you a pic if you want. Please, shoot a pic. Interesting. Gotcha. Curtis says, hi, Curtis. Curtis says, a long time ago, my band recorded Daemonomania, and I made up a lot of the lyrics I didn't know. Curtis, I want you to post the recording of your band doing Daemonomania, because I would love to fucking hear it. Glenn's lyric books. So on. Sorry, Tanner. I'm, like, not comprehending things at the moment. Let me see this again. Did not match. Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, so here's what happens. I have this great fucking interview that I hope will see the light of day in this documentary. So, like, these broadcasts are kind of like a promotion for this documentary. What's up, Amy? How are you? Welcome to the discussion. Hope you and yours are safe and well. So Tom Begowitz, the guy who designed the Misfits box set, and he worked for Caroline Records. He dealt with Glenn, getting the master tapes from Glenn. He oversaw the digitization. I'm not going to go through the whole digitization story again, but it's a fucking scary, fascinating story. The only thing I will say is they're literally digitizing the Misfits recordings, and they're disintegrating as they play through the reader. As they play through the tape head, the Misfits masters vanish, and they're instantaneously digitized at the same time, and they don't exist anymore in tape form. So he oversaw that process. So the only reason why everything's so preserved is because of Tom Begowitz, who's also the author of Scream With Me, which Umberto was talking about earlier in our thing. But to get Curtis, come on, I want to hear this Daemonomania. So Tom is putting together this box set, and there's lots of different aspects and pots spinning. He's dealing with Glenn. He's dealing with Jerry separately, I believe. And the one thing that they're trying to figure out, and you can see videos of this. There's videos of, like, fucking James Hetfield, like, what is Glenn... I talked about this last time. What is Glenn fucking... what is Glenn saying in Green Hell? I can't tell. Is he punking us? Genie of Death? Tom is trying to piece together the lyrics for the box set. And he's getting lyrics from Jerry. Jerry is trying his best to piece together all the lyrics that are going to go in this box set. Ultimately, a lot of the lyrics that are in the box set come from Misfit Central. That's where they come from. They come from Mark Kennedy writing to Jerry Only, asking him about lyrics, because Mark Kennedy was not in touch with Glenn. The only time Mark Kennedy was in touch with Glenn was in '99, when he was trying to pitch the final, when he was trying to pitch the book. Again, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but there was a book, the first Misfits book was supposed to be, it's called the Misfits book, but originally it was the Misfits Bible, and Mark Kennedy was trying to get that published, and Glenn wanted to, this is something I never said. So Glenn was going to kick Mark Kennedy's ass. Mark Kennedy from Misfit Central. He wanted to beat his ass. They met in 1999 or 2000, and Glenn was like, I'm pissed at you. I should kick your ass, you know that? And Mark's like, why? And he's like, because your fucking site is full of bullshit. It's incorrect. It's not, thank you, Tanner. I'll look at it in a second. And because Glenn is like, it's not fucking correct. None of your information is correct for me. And so Glenn agreed to sit down to this, like, tell-all interview with Mark, which is why we know about, as I've said, that's how we found out about Jimmy Battle and fucking Diane DiPiazza and all that shit, blah, 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 blah. But the one thing that nobody knows is nobody knows what fucking Glenn's lyrics are until Glenn published his lyric books. He did 2 lyric books, and it was a revelation. I mean, when you read, but you know how sometimes you read something, you can read it 2 different ways, and you think you're hearing one thing, and you think you're hearing another thing. You're not really sure what the fuck you're hearing. It kind of goes that way for this, you know. So Tanner actually might be onto something. So let's take a look and see what Tanner says in his thing. He just sent me a photo. Let's take a look, Tanner. Everybody hang out for a second while I pull this up. It's so awesome that you guys have stuck around this whole time. This is a marathon. This is a record, guys. Oh, cool. Tanner, this is so cool. Tanner, what zine is this from? Devil. Okay. This is great. Okay, wait. All right. Again, I can't play this on... I don't want Facebook to, like, take down my recording or, like, you know, mute part of it. I'm going to listen to Devil Lock right now. So here's what Tanner... This is what Tanner has shared. Hold on. First... why is this not... Right. So Tanner also shared what Jerry wrote to Mark Kennedy when he was trying to figure out the lyrics, and when Mark Kennedy and Jerry were going back and forth, and Jerry remembered that the lyrics to Halloween 2 I had with from a conversation I had with Glenn. I was told March 9th from a conversation. This is what Jerry responded to Mark when they're trying to figure out the meaning and lyrics of Halloween 2. From a conversation I had with Glenn, I was told that this was a prayer or a chant to transform from a wolf back into a man. Thus, change werewolf. Metamorphosis lycanthropy, back to man, to sunt in quam. Metamorphosis lycanthropy, posunt in quam. Whenever I want to sound like I'm saying something satanic, I just quote Halloween 2. But here are the lyrics to Devil Lock. Ready? This is great. Don't mess with demon offspring. The virgin demon offspring. Their fury has no master. I am cancer. Wait, that sounds like... That's what he says in the lyric book, in Danzig's lyric book. I'm going to make this world bleed. I'm going to make it pay. I'm going to rip its core out. I am cancer. Because I didn't know he was saying I am cancer. Like, nobody knew it was fucking cancer. I am a devil lock. To pluck your eyes out, I am to pluck your eyes out. The hair that falls from darkness. The hair that glows from evil. Its fury has no master. I am cancer. I'm going to make... All right, so now what is Glenn's lyrics? Does anybody have a picture of Glenn's Devil Lock lyrics? Let's see what comes up. Devil Lock lyrics. Let's see if that comes up in Google. Oh man, I can't. That sucks. What, the page from the lyric book? Does anybody... Hold on. Does anybody post that they have it? Does anybody have that book? Be really, really fucking cool to compare that to what Tanner has just shared with me just now. Don't mess with demon offspring. The virgin demon offspring. Their fury has no master. I am cancer. I'm going to make this... Yeah, I love this. The hair that falls... All right, so let's listen to Devil Lock. Everybody put on your Devil Lock hat. Devil Lock. Devil Lock. I love Devil Lock. It's a great song. We're going to have a whole conversation about Earth AD and stuff at one point, because Devil Lock is the shit. All right, ready? All right, I'm listening to Devil Lock right now. No, I'm not. I'm listening to an ad on YouTube. Ah, no, stop it. Stop it. All right, ready? I love Robo's crash cymbals on that. Blah, blah. Gonna rip your core. It's so fucking fast, man. You can't. Don't mess with demon offspring. This virgin demon offspring. I am cancer. I'm gonna make this world bleed. I'm gonna make it pay. I'm gonna rip its core out. I am cancer. Devil Lock to pluck your... No, this is wrong. Nope. To pluck your eyes out, I am a Devil Lock? No way. Okay, that for sure. All right, so that's fucking. Oh my god! Wow, wow, wow! This is great. The hair that falls from darkness, the hair that grows from evil. Its fury has no master. I am cancer. I'm gonna make this world bleed. Gonna make it pay. I'm gonna rip its core out. I am cancer. I am a devil lock. Yeah, wow, that works. That works. But the first part doesn't. Bleed. I'm gonna make it pay. I'm gonna rip its core out. I am cancer. This part, devil lock. To pluck your eyes out. I am a devil. Oh wow. Oh, to pluck your... Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Actually, it does work. Holy shit. That's so cool. This works so much better. This works so much better. I love this. Wow. And let's see what else we got here. Oh, this is also... Okay, this is actually... Whoa, Tanner, you're showing me some shit I've never seen before. This is great. Wow, thank you. Okay. So here's another thing that Mark Kennedy sent to Jerry Only, because they went back and forth. And this is them figuring out the lyrics. And this is Jerry Only trying to figure out the lyrics with Mark Kennedy. And he says, I'm heading down the highway, sign is 3 inverted 9s. If the Lord don't get me, the devil will, but not without a fight. And that's absolutely what it is in Danzig's book. Does this highway ever fucking end? Yup. March 9th. Although I did not proof these, I will. I will compare all the lyrics and music notation. This will not be 100% accurate. When I finish my homework, I will come online to say hi. To prove myself true, I have sent a quickie. American Nightmare. Jerry Only. That's pretty fucking cool. I'm gonna actually agree with Tanner here. I think this might be what he's actually saying, and maybe Glenn did change it at some point. You know, there's also another thing. Okay. I have a little tidbit that everybody will enjoy. Okay, so one of the interviews that I did for this documentary about 8 years ago was Alex Story from Cancer Slug. And Alex and the band and I essentially pretty much spent the afternoon together. He came over to Sal B's house. We shot I think I call it the Chicken Slug episode. I'm going to post it in the notes or whatever. Yeah, here it is. Rock and roll. It's funny, you know, this episode I shot has actually become very memeable. A lot of people make memes out of this. Abel, what's up? Pingalito? Una papel. I just posted the link to that. Yo, what's up, Abel? How are you doing, man? I hope you're well and safe and shit. You stay safe. You know what I mean? So Alex and I hung out later on. The band were playing St. Vitus. You know, I don't say ha 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 ha, Abel. I say, whenever I see ja written, I go ja. Alex, Story, myself, Cassie, Mike, and Kyle was in the band at the time. And we were hanging out at St. Vitus. I followed them there after we shot the rock and roll cooking episode that I just posted. That, like I said, a lot of memes were made out of it. And we went into St. Vitus, and Alex and I sat down, and I interviewed him for about an hour about the Misfits, the original Misfits. And the one thing that he did tell me I don't think it was in the interview itself, it might have been after the interview, Alex told me that, you know, Alex sat in on one of the rehearsals with, I don't know if it was, yeah, this was before they reunited. Alex was sitting in on rehearsals one day while Doyle and Danzig were rehearsing for a Danzig and Doyle show, going over songs. Or maybe this is maybe actually this was no, he was there. He was actually there. I'm sorry. Forget what I just said. He's there. So he's in the room, and they're running through Glenn and Doyle and the band are running through Astro Zombies. Actually, Steve Zing could speak to this as well. I'll have to ask Steve next time I talk to him. There's an end part to Astro Zombies that was never recorded, or maybe it was recorded and mixed out. But at the end of Astro Zombies, it goes. Now I got it wrong again. I'm not gonna butcher this. Hold on. What's everybody's favorite version of Astro Zombies, by the way? I'd have to say the Misfits Collection 1 version is by far the greatest version of Astro Zombies on the face of the planet. Let's see. I have to tell you something. I think Astro Zombies might even be, like, if I had one song, if there's one song that has to, like, straight up, like, personify the Misfits, like, if I had to introduce someone to the Misfits and be like, this is what the Misfits are about, I'd love to say Last Caress, because Last Caress was, like, the first Misfits song I heard, but I'd have to use Astro Zombies, man. It's the quintessential Misfits song. It's got the woes. It's got everything, man. It's like the shit. Astro Zombies is it's the best. If I have to sum down the Misfits to one song, it might be Astro Zombies. So, at the end... Oh, no, that's not what we want. What the fuck? Sorry, guys. Hold on one second. Shut up, Tom Morello. Alright, so at the end of Astro... Okay, so... I want... Dun 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 dun. So that end cap of Astro Zombies, I don't know what you call that in musical terms, that dun 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 dun, that originally had lyrics. And Alex Story, when he was watching Glenn rehearse and sing Astro Zombies while playing with Doyle and the rest of Danzig, he starts going, here come the Astros, dun, 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 dun. Like he starts saying something. Or the Astro Zombies are going to eat us all up and dun, dun, something like that. And so, and then Doyle's like, what the fuck? Like, what are you talking about? Or Glenn was like, does anybody remember that, how that goes? Or Glenn was just saying, yeah, the song used to end with these other lyrics and he took them out. And when he does the song live now with the reunion, he sort of sings it. You can't really make out what he's saying, but he's saying, here come the Astro Zombies, da, 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 da. Something like that. I don't know what the fuck he's saying, but it's very interesting. The song used to be that. It used to have that. That's like lost to time. I wonder if there's a take or version. I wonder if a certain someone I know has in his possession an alternate take of Astro Zombies with the original lyrics. The 12 Hits from Hell London Dungeon has different lyrics, I believe. The second take has alternate lyrics as well as being an alternate take. So there's like little bits and things and pieces like that lost to time. I think I'm fucking spent here. Like, we're approaching 3 hours. I've never talked this long, ever. But it's been a lot of fun. And let me see how long I've been going. Oh my god, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes and there's still 9 people watching this shit? I can't, like, what the fuck? Alright. Last call. Oh, Russell! This guy. Alright. So Russell just joined the group. Russell is the dude who ran. Yeah, he still exists. TVCasualty.com. And in the very first episode, I spoke about how Russell was one of like the earliest. He's one of like the pillars. There's 138.com. There's Misfit Central, and there's TV Casualty, man. And there's a great little site. And Russell built a custom Steve Zing song. Tanner says that Ghouls Night Out also has slightly different lyrics on 12 Hits. That is fucking crazy. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, actually, Tanner. Maybe it's not London Dungeon. Maybe it's Ghouls Night Out, because Tom B is also the person that told me that in my interview. Not that it was Ghouls Night Out, but just that there were alternate lyrics. When they were sort of looking through those tapes, they've discovered alternate lyrics. But yeah, Russell had a website called TV Casualty. Russell has, done all sorts of cool interviews, and he says he also has he made like customized Steve Zing action figures from Samhain. Pretty sweet. So does anybody else have anything else they'd like to contribute, or another topic or thread we can go another rabbit hole we can go down? Because if not, I'm going to finally cut this thing down, and it'll be available on YouTube like the other ones. This has been really fun. I like doing these things. It's a great way to like spend time when quarantining inside. God, there's still some coming. Does anybody have anything, just like anything to contribute? Anything? Think of anything? Blah, 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 blah. We could talk more about Misfits lyrics summarized. Tanner, I think you're right. I think that Devil Lock is a very valid Devil Lock. Devil Lock, the summary to Devil Lock. I'm going to sacrifice you in a public ritual in exchange for infernal secrets. I will remove your skull, heart, and eyes. In doing so, I will subvert God's control over your immortal soul. I think this dude had absolutely no idea what the fuck he was talking about. At all. Earth AD. Life in the present day is boring, but it's going to be awesome in the post-apocalypse. We'll be fighting for our lives, putting heads on pikes, and cannibalizing each other. And in the end, we'll die violently. Earth AD is based on The Hills Have Eyes. I actually have a lot to say about Earth AD. One of the things that Alex Story said when I interviewed him was that, and I thought this was so brilliant, he said that Earth AD is like one song in 9 parts. And I agree with that. I really do. It's almost like a theme album. And if you look at the cover that Mad Mark Rude did, and it took him a year to do it. He did it in pen and ink. It took him a whole year to do it. Mad Mark Rude is no longer with us. He passed away. Would have loved to interview that guy. But he was around back in the day. And it sort of looks like hell. Like he drew the hell that Glenn is singing about in Earth AD, which is just it's just fucking, that record is bad as fuck. It really, really is. And, yeah, Alex, I think Alex was onto something. So it's almost kind of like the Misfits concept album when you really think about it, you know. Although, and what else is interesting is Die Die My Darling, which is on some versions of Earth AD. No way. Russell says there's a documentary on Amazon about Mark Rude. I would love to see that shit. Russell, post a link in the comments for anybody who's interested. We were just talking about Earth AD. I had stuff I wanted to say about Earth AD. I love the way fucking Robo is like he's riding those fucking cymbals in Earth AD. You know, just crash, 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 crash. And, okay, here's something interesting. A lot of the feedback at the end, what they would do is when they're tracking their guitars for Earth AD, supposedly while Glenn slept on a couch in California, they would, under the advisory of Spot, who is the producer and founding bass player of Black Flag, they would throw their guitars into the room and close the door. And that's the feedback you're hearing. All that weird feedback comes from them throwing their guitars into the room and closing the door. Curtis, did you find your fucking version of Daemonomania? Because I really want to hear it with these alternate lyrics. Sounds interesting. All right, I'm going to go till 10 o'clock since it's 9:47 now. 12 minutes. I'm going to stay here for 12 minutes, and at 12 minutes I'm going to bounce because it's fucking late, and I want to watch Friday the 13th Part 4. Does anybody have any show and tell shit? Anybody want to, records? Your favorite fucking Misfits record that you have in your collection? What you got? Any cool Misfits stories? Meeting the fucking band? I don't know, theories about shit. John says Glenn was listening to Ace of Spades and Bomber era Motorhead during the Earth AD era. John, where did you hear that out of curiosity? Not saying that that's incorrect or anything. I've never heard that before. I mean, it makes sense. It sounds like it. But I've also heard that the speed that we hear, the breakneck speed that we hear in Earth AD really comes from Doyle and Jerry and not so much Glenn. Glenn wanted a lot of those songs to be slower. A lot of those songs, about 4 of those songs are actually meant for a side project that Glenn was considering called Samhain. He'd already done he'd already done Earth, Archangel, and I believe Blood Feast, Death Comes Ripping. Bob Riley says, yeah, Earth AD is a masterpiece. A lot of new fans rip on it. Yeah, fuck the new fans. Fuck you new fans ripping on Earth AD. The dude who played guitar claims to have the master tape. Well, get that fucker to fucking digitize that shit. To finish what Bob Riley said. But they do not realize that the Misfits were around for a while. And it was 1983. Metallica was putting out their first album out. Yeah, Bob, I've spoken about this in the previous episodes, but you touch on a great point. The band not only spans this incredibly dense, rich time of evolving music, but the band is really like 4 or 5 bands. I'm not going to go into the whole fucking diatribe. It's late. I'm leaving in 10 minutes. But the band is really 4 or 5 bands split up, and that last band is like, damn it, Curtis, then why did you cover Earth AD? Why'd you cover Daemonomania if Earth AD is your least favorite Misfits? I don't understand you. But by the end, yeah, that's a completely different band. That robo-backed, it's like infusing the ferocity of a Black Flag drummer with the Misfits. It's like taking the Walk Among Us Misfits and injecting them with the spine of Black Flag. You know what I mean? And then that's Earth AD. That's what you get. And people call it the Hardcore Bible, which it's not. I think really the Hardcore Bible is Bad Brains' self-titled tape, which is just, if you guys don't listen to Bad Brains, check it out. That tape is ferocious, right next to Earth AD in ferocity and ferociousness, but in a completely different way with completely different energy. I personally think Earth AD is probably one of their hardest songs. It's just the song itself, it's just hard as fuck. It's like the type of song that you charge into battle with, you know, like it just is hard as fuck. And Wolf's Blood is hard as fuck too. I got a hellhound. It's fucking evil. What does he say for hellhound here? Hellhound. My dog is a hellhound. A dog literally from hell. In order to get one, I had to die and return from hell. If you seek such a dog, mine can help with the killing you part. That's fucking funny. Going back to the true crime, real life stuff. Hollywood Babylon is based on a book by Kenneth Aninger called Hollywood Babylon, which was all about, like, you know, the sultry, seedy side of, like, you know, Hollywood folklore. And so Glenn was writing about that too. And he's writing about who killed Marilyn. You know what I mean? He's writing about, like, horror business. The song Horror Business is this juxtaposition. It's a brilliant song, Horror Business, when you think about it. But why is it brilliant? Because it's the juxtaposition of an event that just happened within his community with the movie Psycho. Sid murdered Nancy in the bathroom at the Chelsea Hotel, and Glenn has juxtaposed that. Glenn has decided to juxtapose that with what happens in the movie Psycho. Psycho 78, 12 o'clock, don't be late. All this horror business, my mirrors are black. You don't go in a bathroom with me. Unfucking believable. But yeah, the band is like fucking that's the Horror Business version of that band. That band that wrote Horror Business is not the same band that does Earth AD, even though it's the core of the same personnel, and it's and they're making different music, man. But they're still the Misfits. That's what's interesting. As long as it's Glenn and Jerry, it's going to be the Misfits. And, you know, I guess you can throw Doyle in there as well. Approaching 7 minutes. Does anybody have any last things they want to add before 11 o'clock? Sorry, before 10 o'clock hits and I go and watch Friday the 13th Part 4. I've never seen all the Friday the 13th movies before. I've seen 3, 8, 9, and 10, X, and Freddy vs. Jason, but none of the other ones. So I'm watching them all in sequential order right now. Bob says Harley has the key, or had the key to Sid's room. That is correct. Harley Flanagan, who is a really interesting fellow and was really around for some really insane shit during the late 70s. He was the drummer for the Stimulators before he started the Cro-Mags. He was supposed to be interviewed for this documentary. I did interview Harley's bandmate, Paris Mayhew, for this documentary, but Harley's very, this and that, back and forth, blah, 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 blah. And it didn't go down. But what's funny is that not only did he have Sid's key, as I mentioned earlier, he also had Jerry's bass. He also lived in the same building as Allen Ginsberg, and he wrote a book of poetry when he was 6, and Allen Ginsberg wrote the foreword to that. He hung out with the Clash. Yes, Tanner. Yes, we'll talk. We'll talk at some point, for sure. What else? Yeah, so it's cool that he had that key. I wonder what that goes for. So, you want to know something? Russell, has there ever been any mention of any recordings with Diane DiPiazza? All right. I've never heard of any recordings with Diane DiPiazza, Russell, but if you know of them, that would be really fucking cool, and I'd love to talk to you more about that. Are you familiar of the existence of Diane DiPiazza recordings? My sons are my nephews, Lowell, so I saw Jerry's guitar you spoke about. That's awesome. Bob is back. Hello, Bob. We're cashing out in 5 minutes, Bob. If you have anything you want to add. Did I ever see Anthony Bourdain interview Harley? I have not. Is that a good interview? See, Anthony Bourdain was super into hardcore. He loved fucking hardcore, and that's why he was friends with Harley and Iggy Pop and all these guys. Matt says, according to all the ones around back then, nothing was recorded with her. Okay, so Russell, you didn't know about any recordings. So Matt, I will tell you that I have been in touch with Diane DiPiazza many, many years ago through email. I asked her if she'd be in my documentary, which is what this Facebook Live thing is all about. She, very super nice lady, politely declined, but did give me this very interesting take and explanation of that band and what she thought of it and blah, 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 blah. And I saved that email, and I'm going to have it feature in my documentary, her words. So we will get to hear Diane DiPiazza's 2 cents about the Misfits and her time. One thing I will say, though, the band was not really, in my opinion, and other people will tell you, the Misfits were not the Misfits until Manny, Jerry, and Glenn got together and fucking performed, man. Curtis says, so rad, it's on YouTube. He used to see Harley at Max's and was like, who the fuck is this kid hanging in the club? Yeah, because Harley Flanagan's aunt, Denise Mercedes, was the guitarist for this band called the Stimulators, who were fucking huge back in the day, and they played with Kraut, the Mad, the Bad Brains, and the Misfits, amongst other bands at Max's Kansas City, between the years of, well, I don't know when the Stimulators started. Probably, I think the Stimulators started around 78 to 81 they were around. The lead singer passed away. Nick Martin, who's interviewed for this documentary, who was a super key player of the late, he was super involved in the scene, in the Max's Kansas City scene in late 70s, saw the Misfits a bunch of times and knew all those guys and stuff. He was the bass player of the Stimulators with Harley later on. And he has some interesting insights. But yeah, Harley was like this little, he was like a mascot. He was like this little kid that would fucking play, drums. He wasn't allowed, he somehow would just get into the clubs, hanging out with Deborah Harry and fucking Andy Warhol and shit. It's nuts. It's his, that's his, no one can tell that guy wasn't around back then, because he was. And I do touch on this documentary. I touch a whole bunch on, or I want to touch a whole bunch on the New York scene that the Misfits came out of, because, and this is the last thing I'll say before I leave, because it's 10 o'clock. The Misfits are not a New Jersey band. I mean, they are, but they're not. They're a New York band. Yes, they started playing shows in New Jersey, but they're not, dude. They are a part of the late 70s, or they really came up in the late 70s, in the year of 77. They came up in the New York City punk scene of the late 70s. And so for that reason, I've actually interviewed some people from back then from pretty prominent bands. So Walter Lure, from the Heartbreakers, I interviewed him. He was one of my first interviews. He's in this documentary. Peter Crowley, who ran Max's Kansas City and booked the Misfits during when they just put out Bullet and stuff. Glenn gave Peter, or had one of those Teenagers from Mars acetates was put into the Max's Kansas City jukebox. Berto, you came back at the worst time, bro. I'm about to leave. We're ending. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. We've hit 3 hours, so we're done. This broadcast is over. Curtis from Tang Records. Yeah, man, I've wanted to talk to him because I knew, been trying to fucking do you know how to get a hold of him, Bob? Because I would love to fucking talk with him. And you know who was also at that shoot for the Brain Eaters video was the band Gangrene. There were a bunch of bands. I believe SSD Control, Gangrene, Curtis from Tang Records shot it. Because they were kind of branching out. They were trying to do video cassette releases. There was Corey Rusk, as we all know. It came to light recently, but many years ago, I tried to get Corey Rusk to give up that tape, or I tried to reach him to give up that tape. It didn't happen. Corey Rusk had a U-matic camera, and he shot a music video for the Misfits doing Night of the Living Dead. When I interviewed Rocky, Jerry and Doyle's brother, I asked him, were there any other music videos shot? And this was back in 2010. And he told me, yes, there was a music video shot for Night of the Living Dead, and it shows them knocking over tombstones. That's what Rocky said. And they shot it out in Ohio when they were hanging out with the Necros. Corey Rusk was the bass player of the Necros. And as everybody knows, Todd Swalla would fill in time to time when they needed a drummer in a tight bench, especially the final show at Greystone Hall. You know, it's really sad. I never recorded my conversation with Russ Gibb, who was in charge of those shows. He was a radio DJ, and he was the guy who broke the Paul is Dead story. And the Misfits stayed at his house, and he was telling me about, oh my God. So he was telling me about, I'm trying to remember a conversation that I never fucking recorded because I'm an idiot. Should have recorded that conversation. He was telling me about the Misfits the next day around the breakfast table in his house after they had broken up the previous night. And he was just talking about how awkward it was, and nobody was talking to each other. Bob says, I was hanging out with him and Fitzy of the Business in their hotel room. We were talking records. That's awesome. I'd love to hear those stories. Wow, Curtis, that's cool as shit. I got to get in touch with Curtis from Tang. That's a dude to talk to. Thanks for bringing that up. All right, guys, listen. I hate to close it out on 9 of you. This was so much fucking fun. I had a great time. My voice is baked. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We're going to go again next week. I'm going to try and think of some more shit, some different content. If there's anything anybody wants to talk about, like I don't know, post a fucking comment. Like, you know, anything we'd like to explore or have a symposium about. I mean, I'm all about that shit. So, you know, I don't know. But, yeah, this was a lot of fun. So, disconnect the camera. Woo! Whoa, look. It's me staring into my glasses. It's so crazy. All right. Whoa, that's so cool. Are 7 people really watching me do this right now? This is so funny. There's still 7 people watching this shit. Whoa! Holy fucking crap! What's going on? Oh my god. Oh no! Wait, there's gonna be another one. Look! Holy shit! It's gonna keep going! Oh my god. This is fucking insane. How long will this go for? Alright, I'm gonna pull it back a little bit. Oh my god! Holy shit! Alright. This is crazy. Oh my god. It's like the image is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Yo. The layers of the layers. Wow, 9 people are watching this. Alright, I know I said I was leaving, but this is so crazy. I had no idea this was going to happen. Oh my god. And there goes another one. It's getting more and more distorted now. The screen within the screen within the screen within the screen. How far can we go with this? Oh my god. Until we can't see it, guys. We gotta see this to the end. As it extends into infinity. I wonder if I can screenshot this right now. I think I can. I'm screenshotting this because it's so bananas. Nice. There are 3 people watching this right now. What is going on? There we go. Correction. Now there's 4 people watching. Guys, don't you have anything better to do? What? It's going to travel all the way down. So if I go like that, what happens now? And then I go like that, what happens now? And I go like that, what happens now? I think I've discovered some new art. And then I go like this, and this, and this. Oh, the hand's traveling now. The hand is traveling. It's going to keep traveling. What? How am I doing this? Oh my god. Oh my god, this is getting insane. It's like I'm sending things down into the vortex. I'm such a silly bastard. Whoa. 4 people are watching this. I don't understand why. Whoa, look, the thumb gets sent down. You get the hand like that. Let's see what happens. It's still going. Yeah, Russell, right? It's like the post-credit surprise. I just can't stop. It's so insane. It's having too much fun. I really just spent 10 minutes doing this. Oh my god, 2 people are watching this. What's wrong with you guys? Let's see what that does. What? It's like hypnotic. Keep sending hands. Let's see what happens if I send my glasses down. Let's see what that does. There we go. Took long enough. This is absolutely the most insane thing I've ever done in my life. Ah, it's me. That was not the plan. Let's see what that does, though. You're going to suddenly... Oh, there I am. Whoa. This is nuts. This is like performance art. Whoa! Holy shit! What the fuck am I doing? Oh my god! Alright, I really can't stop for the life of me.